Chapter 1598. The battle had gone on for more than 3 hours. As the main character, Ceylon was already tired. She kept yawning. "Ceylon, if you're tired, go to sleep." Chun Zhao patted her head gently. Ceylon fell asleep on Chun Zhao's lap. Klaus and the Lightning team had used up all their ammunition. This was their strongest weapon. Now they were out of ammunition. They wouldn't force themselves, so they all left the battlefield. They stood beside Chun Zhao and protected Ceylon. Some scattered evil spirits were taken care of with the dragon-owned dagger. They didn't have magic power, but that didn't mean they couldn't fight at all. They were very clear about their position. Their purpose on the battlefield was to exhaust the enemy. If they were at a disadvantage, they would be the team to cover the rear. They were fighting to exhaust the enemy, not to risk their lives. The spiritualists of the association were the main force. Even if Chun Zhao didn't do anything in this battle, but compared to Norma's third night, it was much easier. Everyone still had plenty of magic power. Also, because this was the city, there was no cover. So, they didn't use many spells that were too obvious. For example, Gaia didn't turn into a fire dragon. Helis didn't use Abyss Demon either. It was like Jalanash had used her ultimate move. This ultimate skill looked more like a firework. So, even if someone saw it, they would only think that someone was setting off fireworks. Gaia and Helis should be able to deal with Second Night easily among the current members of the association. If they had to face Third Night alone, it would probably be too difficult. Norma, on the other hand, was relatively weaker, but she was still between Second Night and Third Night. Next were Elite and Jalanash. They could probably deal with Second Night too, but it would be very difficult. It was mainly a problem of endurance. Elite was good at quick battles. Jalanash was good at large-scale attacks. They couldn't keep fighting for too long. Then more and more people left the battlefield. Only Helis, Gaia, Norma, Elite, and Morid were still fighting. Helis, Gaia, and Norma were still relatively relaxed. None of them had used their true trump cards, because their 3 ultimate moves were too eye-catching. So, they were still holding back. Morid was about to run out of food and ammunition. Elite was because it concerned his daughter. He didn't want to retreat at this time. Even if he retreated, it had nothing to do with the outcome of the battle. At this time, there were almost no ordinary evil spirits left in the sky. Ordinary evil spirits would either attack in advance and be destroyed. Otherwise, they would be devoured by their own kind. Only a dozen or so evil spirits and a few powerful evil spirits were left. Gaia, Halles, and Norma stopped. Morid had already retreated. Gaia pulled Elite back. Elite, that's enough. Go back and rest. Leave the rest to Chen. Elite actually wanted to hold on a little longer. However, in his current state, it was indeed very strenuous for him to deal with those powerful fellows. Gaia, Halles, and Norma didn't want to fight anymore. On one hand, it was a waste of time. On the other hand, he had to deal with those powerful evil spirits. In that case, he had no choice but to use his ultimate move. There was no need for them to expose too much here. It was better to let Chun Zhao clean up the mess. Chun Zhao gently lifted Ceylon's head and let her lean on Giselle's thigh. Chun Zhao walked forward. "These spiritualists are really powerful," Nala said in surprise. "It's the third night, and they can actually last until now. This is the real dangerous moment." Chromie looked at the sky seriously.
"Why?
Haven't most of the evil spirits been destroyed? Ordinary evil spirits have been destroyed or devoured, but the most powerful ones haven't done anything yet. There are also those evil spirit hybrids. They're still devouring each other," Chromie said. Chromia said, "And after such a long battle, those spiritualists have probably used up most of their magic power. They're in danger." "Are you saying that they'll lose?" "That's possible," Chromie said seriously. Suddenly, they saw a figure shoot into the sky. But because it was nighttime, they couldn't see it clearly. The figure touched an evil spirit hybrid. When the figure came into contact with a hybrid of evil spirits, then a second, a third, a fourth, it was too fast. The person didn't even use any dazzling magic. Even the three people in the hotel couldn't see the figure's movements clearly. The three people below the hotel couldn't even see the figure's movements clearly. Their mouths were wide open, disbelief written all over their faces. The battle ended in an extremely short amount of time. The three could only count silently. 1, 2, 3, 4. Every time a number was counted, a powerful evil spirit would be destroyed. It was too fast. Even when they faced ordinary evil spirits, it wasn't so easy. But the figure was unbelievably fast. After all, he wasn't facing ordinary evil spirits. Those evil spirits were all powerful ones that could fight 100 alone. The entire process took less than 20 seconds. The battle was over. The figure just floated above the hotel. At this time, there was nothing around him. There wasn't a single evil spirit. How did he do it? What magic did he use? Chromie shook her head. I don't understand at all. I didn't expect there to be such a powerful spiritualist among them. Since he fights at close range every time, he might be an enhancer. But he can fly in the air. Enhancers shouldn't be able to do that, right? I don't know. Every single one of them is terrifyingly powerful. Who knows how they did it? Chromie sighed. Seems like I was too naive in the past. I thought I was strong enough to deal with any situation. Now I know that there are so many powerful spiritualists in the world. Oakfield, I want to accept the Scarlet Church's mission. That might be our chance to break through. What do you think? We're husband and wife. Since you want to go, I naturally can't fall behind, Oakfield said. Count me in, Nala said. I want to go too. She was also stimulated quite a bit tonight. As a bystander, she saw how terrifying Night 3 was for the first time. However, other than witnessing how terrifying Third Night was, she had also witnessed something even more powerful. Someone so powerful that it made one's hair stand on end. Perhaps this was the real world. Although the strongest evil spirits had been destroyed, Night 3 wasn't over yet. However, the third night was not over yet. There were still sporadic evil spirits attacking. But the strength of the evil spirits now was probably comparable to Night 1. There was no threat at all. Please remember this book's domain name. 9 Heavens Godly Emperor Mobile Version. Chapter 1599. Although the third night hadn't truly ended yet, but the following battles were no longer a threat. The ones that came were all normal evil spirits. And very few of them. The party continued. To them, the occasional appearance of an evil spirit was also a form of entertainment. Until 1 in the morning, the third night finally ended. Nala Miras, Chromia, and Oakfield didn't go up. Part of it was because they didn't know each other. Also, they didn't appear during the danger. Now they went to get to know them. What was going on? And they weren't even on the same level. They might not be interested in getting to know them. So, after thinking about it, they decided to leave. Compared to their power and professionalism, the three of them were more paranormal enthusiasts. Not long after the three left, Molin and Colin came. As the two were about to go upstairs, an elite suddenly came down. Molin, why did you bring him? An elite looked at Molin unhappily. Molin shrugged. We were nearby. I saw that the third night was over. There's no more danger anyway. Colin, go back now, an elite ordered. Why? Isn't it already over? Colin asked in a dissatisfied tone. What does it have to do with you? I want to see Ceylon. I'm her brother, can I? Ceylon is safe. You don't need to worry. Go home now. Why? An elite didn't care about Colin's anger. He didn't want Colin to come into contact with the supernatural organization. More accurately, he didn't want Colin to join. There is no why, an elite said with a cold and unquestionable tone. Colin's eyes flashed, suddenly understanding his father's intentions. I know what you want, Colin said. You just don't want me to join the supernatural organization, right? Yes, trash like you will only be a burden to us if you join the supernatural organization. I don't care. I want to join, Colin said determinedly. Without my permission, you can't join. You can't stop me. No, I can stop you, an elite said calmly. Go back now, don't force me to do it. If you don't let me join the supernatural society, then I'll tell Mom your secret. If you tell your mother, She will stop you, but I won't be affected at all, an elite said disapprovingly. Even if his wife knew about it, so what? At most, one more person would know about it. But with AI Mi's personality, she would definitely make the same choice as him. Your current power is not enough to join the supernatural organization. You might have a chance in the future, but if your mother finds out, you'll lose that chance forever. Colin was angry and annoyed, but there was nothing he could do. His father's tyranny made him feel helpless. Only if you teach me magic. Colin chose to back down in the end. However, he still made his request. Since his current strength was not enough, then he would train until he was strong enough. If his strength could surpass his father's, at that time he would no longer have any reason to stop him. Sure, an elite agreed readily. Since his son had awakened his bloodline, there was no need to stop him from learning magic. Moreover, it wasn't a bad thing for Kellen to become stronger and have the ability to protect himself. More, send him back. I've done what you asked me to do. Do you still want me to pretend? You didn't do what I asked you to do. You let him come here. Fine, fine. Moore's face was full of helplessness. Disappointed, Colin turned to leave.
Wait.
An elite suddenly stopped the two of them. Colin's face lit up. Dad, did you change your mind? This is my magic book. Take it and read it. Colin was disappointed again. But with this magic book, he wasn't too disappointed. On the way back, Colin kept flipping through the magic book. Soon I'll surpass my dad. You're thinking too much. Angelite's super speed spell is very complicated. This is only basic meditation. Moore directly attacked Colin's confidence. Basic? Colin's face fell again. This is to increase your magic power, Moore said. With your current magic power, you probably can't last more than a few seconds if you go all out. You'll need at least half an hour to recover your magic power and stamina. So, you need more magic power to sustain your outburst. Fine. At night, when they got home, Kellen was reprimanded by his grandparents. Because Colin brought Moore out to play for the entire night. In their eyes, Moore was a good kid. It was definitely Colin messing around. They didn't know. Actually, it was Moore and Colin messing around. Of course, they were also happy that Maul and Colin were able to enjoy themselves. But after everyone went to rest, Colin pulled Moore again. He wanted Moore to explain the contents of the magic book to him. It's about time to rest, Chen Zhao said. You guys should go rest too. The plane is at 10 tomorrow morning. Don't oversleep. Okay, we'll play a bit more, and then go to sleep, Litgrove said. I really envy you young people's energy. Everyone was speechless. Young people? You sound like you're much older than us. Chen Zhao returned to his room early. Of course, he didn't go to sleep. Recently, he'd been too energetic. He only needed to sleep once every few days. But recently, he'd been studying elemental affinity and the world of consciousness. But without anyone to guide him, this path was too difficult. Even now, Chen Zhao still had no clue. Walk a path that no one else had. It was easy to say, but in reality, it was very difficult to do. Even Chen Zhao had to be careful. The effects of the Green Robe Manual could not be said to be non-existent, but the effects were already greatly reduced. Chen Zhao felt that if he relied on the Qingyi Manual, he'd need 1,000 years to break through. It didn't feel good. Chen Zhao felt that he had to create a method suitable for cultivating immortal power. However, creating his own cultivation method was even more difficult for Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao mainly cultivated Taoist methods. If he wanted to create a method, it had to be close to Taoism. But his understanding of Taoism was probably not as good as Fei Lai's. Creating his own cultivation method was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Chapter 1600. More, are you leaving today? Kalon didn't want him to leave. They'd only spent a day together, but Kalon had learned a lot from Moore. No choice, Moore said helplessly. I've already booked the ticket. When are you going back to LA? My dad won't let me take the same flight as you guys. An elite used an extremely tough attitude to guard against Kalon, preventing him from coming into contact with the supernatural organization. Moore said goodbye to Colin's grandparents and his mother. Moore, you're here, West greeted Moore, who'd just arrived. In the departure lounge, everyone gathered in twos and threes. Only Chen Zhao sat on a chair. There was no one within 3 or 4 meters of him. Moore wanted to go up and greet Chen Zhao, but when he got close, he felt an unbearable pressure. Moore immediately backed away. "President, what's wrong?" he asked in a low voice. "Something's wrong. He's probably cultivating some spell. He's like this today," Wes said. Actually, Chen Zhao had purposely released his aura. That was why it felt so unapproachable. Of course, Chen Zhao didn't have nothing better to do. He wanted to know what it was to be close to the elements. But Chen Zhao had no clue at all. Elemental energy was spiritual qi. Chen Zhao could also feel it. But Chen Zhao didn't understand at all. How is this any different from elves getting close to the elements? Should he ask Lila Gavich later? Chen Zhao remembered that when he'd first met Lila Gavich and Maislin Poole, he'd felt a strange aura from them. That strange aura should be close to the elements. After boarding the plane, the people sitting beside Chen Zhao suffered. For more than an hour, they had to endure the pressure from Chen Zhao's body. More importantly, they weren't acquaintances. They were just passengers on the same flight. After getting off the plane, West came to Chen Zhao's side. "President, you must be tired. Why don't you rest at home for a few days?" What a joke. If Chen Zhao emitted pressure all over like this, he'd be in a mess wherever he went. He'd better go back and harm his wife and children. "Okay, I won't go to the headquarters." Chen Zhao drove back. But when he reached his house, he retracted his aura. Feilai was running on the beach. Feilai's body was getting better and better. It had been 2 months since the birth. But Feilai had already recovered. Little Jerlin and little Larissa played in the shallows with the family of dolphins. "Master, a car has entered Mingyue Villa's territory," the butler said. At the same time, a projection of a supercar appeared on the wall. The driver was Lila Gavich. "Housekeeper, did you hear a female voice?" "Yes, master." "Are you satisfied with this voice?" The butler changed his voice. "Don't you have a slightly more normal voice? Why are they all synthesized sounds?" "Not at the moment, master. Do you need me to send a service request to the headquarters?" "Let them. The data for me." "Sure. I'll use this female synthesized voice for now." At this time, Lila Gage had already arrived at the gate of Mingyue Villa. Although the Bright Moon Villa did not have a wall or an iron gate, it was still a very dangerous place. However, there were roadblocks. If Chen Zhao or Feilai didn't order them to put them down, the cars outside wouldn't be able to enter. Just as Lila was about to press the doorbell, he saw the roadblocks sink into the ground. What a nice place. Lila Gage was rather envious of this place. All the good places have been taken by him. Lila Gage was very sensitive to worldly spiritual qi. When he'd left Mirror Lake, he'd already sensed that the worldly spiritual qi there was especially abundant. For anyone, Mirror Lake was already a treasured place. Who would have thought that there would be such a place in such a spacious area? The worldly spiritual qi here was no less abundant than Mirror Lake. Suddenly, Lila Gage's heart skipped a beat. No, he'd passed by this place before. He didn't realize that there was so much worldly spiritual qi here. If there really was such abundant worldly spiritual qi, he definitely would have noticed it. Moreover, such a treasured place couldn't be left empty for Chen Zhao to develop. It was probably already occupied by someone. Had it been modified by someone? He'd heard that there was a capable person in the East who could change the landscape and the aura of feng shui. That person was extremely powerful, and he was from China. If he had the ability to do so, it was not incomprehensible. After Lila Gage drove the car into the parking lot, he walked into the mansion. Every time he closed a door, it would open automatically. It seemed that Chen Zhao already knew that he was here. Lila Gage arrived at the front yard. The scenery here was relaxing and joyful. Outside the front yard was the magnificent sea. The sea breeze carried the dense worldly spiritual qi, shocking one's mind. However, what shocked Lila Gage the most was the huge skull of a dragon in the corner of the yard. Although the skull of the dragon head was painted with dye to make it look like a fake, it was actually a fake. But Lila Gavich could still feel the aura from the skull. It was definitely the skull of a real dragon. Mr. Lila, please sit. Chen Zhao didn't get up. He leaned back in the chair and enjoyed the afternoon sun. Mr. Chen, sorry to disturb you without telling you. Are you here to take Amanda Didier's flesh?
Yes.
Mr. Chen, are you ready? Yes. Chen Zhao nodded and took out an arm-long container. It contained a piece of Amanda Didier's flesh. Not only was the container sealed, but it was also sealed with magic so that the aura inside wouldn't dissipate. It's yours. Chen Zhao handed the container to Lila Gage. Mr. Chen, this place is really nice, Lila Gage said. Yes, or I wouldn't have bought it. Mr. Chen, you know feng shui, right?
No.
Chen Zhao glanced at Lila Gage. Thinking about it, he suddenly understood what Lila Gage was thinking. Lila Gage was a dark elf. He was very sensitive to worldly spiritual qi. He might have thought that the abundant worldly spiritual qi in Mingyue Villa was the result of his modification. In fact, the reason why the worldly spiritual qi was so abundant here was because of Old Turtle's internal alchemy. Chen Zhao had placed the internal alchemy in a circular basement under the house. This basement was specially designed to store the internal alchemy. Chapter 16:01. Old Turtle's internal alchemy fit perfectly into the curved upper and lower grooves of the room. The spiritual qi from the internal alchemy would also surge up from the bottom of the villa. The entire villa would be filled with spiritual qi and then spread outwards. Therefore, the closer one was to the villa, the more spiritual qi there was. For normal people, Mingyue Villa was at most a place with fresh air and beautiful scenery. But for Lila Gainik, it was more than that. To him, Mingyue Villa was like heaven. The longer he stayed, the more nostalgic he felt. If it was someone else, he would probably try to take over Mingyue Villa even if he had to play dirty tricks. Unfortunately, it was Chen Zhao. Lila Gainik knew what was important. Going against Chen Zhao would be suicide. Even if he used dirty tricks, he would have to use force to solve the problem. Lila Gainik didn't think that worldly influence could make Chen Zhao yield. Plus, Chen Zhao was richer than him and had the supernatural organization behind him. In terms of influence in the government, Chen Zhao was probably even more powerful than him. Master, a car has entered Mingyue Villa, the butler said again. At the same time, the butler projected an image of the car. It was a high-end car. Chen Zhao didn't know who it belonged to. Check the license plate. This car belongs to Violet Beauty Group, the butler said. Chen Zhao was confused. He didn't seem to know anyone from this company. Mr. Chen, do you have a guest? I'll be leaving now. Lila Gainik stood up. Mr. Chen, if you're free, I'd like to invite you to my house. Sure, if you're free. By then, the car had reached the door. Two people got out. Lila Gainik's expression changed slightly when he saw the projection. He didn't know one of the girls, but he did know the other old lady. The pillar of the Scarlet Church, 23rd Blood Mary. Blood Mary wasn't just a senior. She was also known as the most powerful Blood Mary. No crisis could be called a crisis before her. Why was she here? Did she know Chen Zhao? 23rd Blood Mary was very familiar with the place. She parked the car at the door and walked in with her granddaughter. However, the more she walked, the more surprised she became. Of course, she could feel that the heaven and earth spiritual energy here was terrifyingly abundant. Moreover, the heaven and earth spiritual qi here was not plundering the heaven and earth spiritual qi of other regions. The 23rd generation knew that there was a technique to move mountains and seas qi in China. It was to gather the heaven and earth spiritual energy in the surrounding area to form a spirit vein. Although the spirit mountains were filled with spiritual energy, it also caused the heaven-earth spiritual qi in the surrounding areas to dry up. However, it was different in this place. The 23rd generation hadn't noticed the exhaustion of the world's aura along the way. However, the closer they got to the Bright Moon Villa, the more they felt the vast spiritual energy of heaven and earth. This was especially true for the building in front of them, which was surging with spiritual energy. Could there be a natural spiritual vein here? Mana Bloody Mary, who was standing behind 23rd Gen, looked unhappy. The 23rd generation brought his granddaughter to the front yard. Elf. 23rd glanced at R.A. Gavich first. It seemed that she had dealt with elves before and knew who Lila Gavich was at first glance. Elves? He's an elf? Mana pointed at Lila Gavich in surprise. Lila Gavich didn't look like an elf at all. Be it in movies or games, elves were synonymous with elegance, handsomeness, and quick-wittedness. However, Lila Gavich had stubble all over his face and body. He was also smoking a cigar. He didn't look like an elf at all. Lila Gavich felt hurt. He was actually doubted by a little girl. However, he was experienced and had a steady and determined personality. Seeing that the girl was walking with Blood Mary, Lila Gavich was probably her junior. Lila Gavich wouldn't argue with her because of a little girl's offense. Mr. Chen, please forgive me for visiting without notice. The 23rd generation turned to look at Chen Zhao. Mr. 23rd, what can I do for you? Chen Zhao's attitude was still respectful. Chen Zhao didn't like or dislike the 23rd generation. She was just taking advantage of her seniority. However, she did have the right. Of course, the premise was that they wouldn't have a conflict. If they did, or if there was a conflict of interest, Chen Zhao didn't care if they became enemies. Mr. Chen, I want to make a deal with you. Go ahead. Please accept my granddaughter as your student, the 23rd generation said. What do I get in return? Chen Zhao asked. Hearing Chen Zhao's words, Lila Gavich couldn't believe it. Chen Zhao was actually asking for benefits from the 23rd generation. If it were him, he would be willing to accept this mission without any benefits. However, Lila Gavich knew his own limits. He knew that he didn't have the ability. The 23rd generation had come personally to beg Chen Zhao to accept his granddaughter as his student. Mr. Chen, do you know ancient Greek? The 23rd generation had a faint smile. Chen Zhao's face darkened. This old woman was indeed cunning. Of course, she was scheming against him after the spar. Chen Zhao had taken the magic scroll into consideration that he didn't know ancient Greek. Even if he won the scroll, he wouldn't be able to understand the words. Now, he could use this to threaten him. Grandma, I don't need to be his student. He doesn't look as good as Mom. Mana was unhappy. Shut up, the 23rd generation scolded. His granddaughter was talented, but her horizons were too low. If she could live for another 20 years, she might be able to continue her previous path under her guidance. Perhaps the Scarlet Church could prosper in her hands. But she would definitely die in the next 3 years. So, she had to arrange the future of the Scarlet Church as soon as possible. When she'd issued the 98 missions, she'd hoped to form a good relationship with the spiritual world. Her granddaughter also needed someone to guide her. Without a doubt, Chen Zhao was the best choice. Chen Zhao shook his head. I'm still losing out. If she becomes my student, I'll have to worry about her for the rest of her life. But you're only paying with one spell. Plus, I don't really need you to translate ancient Greek. If I really do, I can pay some price and summon an ancient soul from hell who understands ancient Greek. So, you don't have enough bargaining power. The 23rd generation's heart sank. She knew that for someone like Chen Zhao, if he said this, he would probably be able to do it. It sounded unbelievable, but the 23rd generation believed it. This also meant that her bargaining power was worthless. Chapter 16:02. This made her feel awkward. She'd brought her granddaughter here confidently. She believed that Chen Zhao would be willing to make the deal. But she'd overestimated her bargaining chip. Grandma, let's go. I don't need him to be my teacher. But she didn't want to give up like this. She knew Chen Zhao much better than her granddaughter. She knew how powerful Chen Zhao was. The most important thing was Chen Zhao's age. Building a good relationship with Chen Zhao was what she cared about the most. Mr. Chen, no matter if you accept Mana as your student or not, I'm willing to translate that magic scroll for you. 23rd Gen's words were very beautiful. Actually, this is my job. Last time you won that magic scroll, I should translate it for you. As she spoke, she took out a translated book and handed it to Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao took the book. He didn't think that she'd be so decisive. But it made sense, since she knew that her bargaining chip had lost its effect. It was meaningless for her to keep it. She might as well do him a favor. Of course, this favor wasn't important. Thank you, Ms. Blood Mary, for your generosity. You're welcome. She also smiled. Mr. Chen, if you have time, you can go to the Scarlet Church's headquarters in Europe. It'll be an unparalleled honor for the Scarlet Church. Of course. 23rd generation gracefully left with his granddaughter. It was as if she wasn't angered by Chen Zhao's rejection at all. Of course, this was just on the surface. Chen Zhao didn't know if she was angry or not. However, the people of the 23rd generation were experienced. She definitely wouldn't start a feud with Chen Zhao because of this. After all, she didn't have many years left. Starting a feud with Chen Zhao would cost too much. It wasn't something the Scarlet Church could afford. The old woman was still very rational. This wasn't a movie where they were either friends or enemies. Lila Gavich also left, but he wasn't sure. It seemed like she didn't have a good time when she left. Would she turn against Chen Zhao? Chen Zhao might not be afraid of her or the Scarlet Church. But would the 23rd generation think of him as Chen Zhao's partner or friend? He didn't think that he could talk to the Scarlet Church and her equally. Chen Zhao read the translated magic book. Dimensional magic was completely different from most magic. For example, elemental magic was more like a chemical formula. Spatial magic, on the other hand, was even more complicated. It was just like architecture in the magic world. There were two types of alternate dimensions. One was to enter the alternate dimension at any time. The casting of this spatial magic depended on the strength of the caster. The more powerful one was, the larger the area covered by the alternate dimension. Spellcasters could also pull certain people into the alternate dimension based on their preferences. The other method was to build it over a long period of time. In theory, the construction of an alternate dimension could be expanded infinitely. It was similar to the Tower of Trials. But Chen Zhao definitely wasn't as strong as the handsome guy. The 18th floor of the Tower of Trials had an almost infinite amount of space. Moreover, Samuel could easily expand Chen Zhao's spatial ring tens of thousands of times. Of course, if he had enough time, he could even create an entire universe. However, this amount of time was also an astronomical figure. Chen Zhao tried to build his own alternate dimension according to the method on the magic scroll. This alternate dimension completely belonged to Chen Zhao. Unless Chen Zhao allowed it or went through the passage he had prepared, no one could enter. Otherwise, no one could enter. But the alternate dimension couldn't be taken away. It would stay wherever it was built. From a certain perspective, the alternate dimension was similar to Chen Zhao's spatial ring. But the spatial ring could be carried everywhere, while the alternate dimension Chen Zhao built couldn't. Speaking of which, the alternate dimension was similar to space crevices. However, Blackie was born with the ability to open space crevices. This was a talent of his race. Moreover, the space crevices Blackie opened were filled with the aura of death. The alternate dimension construction spell that Chen Zhao was learning didn't have any attributes. Speaking of which, this spell was a bit useless to Chen Zhao. This spell required Chen Zhao to continuously input his power and then slowly build it. Apart from adding a territory that normal people couldn't see, this spell didn't seem to have any other use. Of course, it wasn't completely useless. For example, if Chen Zhao's friends and family were in danger, Chen Zhao could immediately pull them into the alternate dimension. The prerequisite was that they had to be within the range of Chen Zhao's alternate dimension. Of course, Chen Zhao could also use the first method, which was to open an alternate dimension at any time. However, this kind of alternate dimension was complicated to cast and required a certain amount of time. It couldn't be opened instantly. If Chen Zhao and his friends and family had a nuclear bomb that would explode in a few minutes, then Chen Zhao could easily open the alternate dimension and let his friends and family hide inside. But if it was going to explode in a second, then Chen Zhao couldn't do anything. So, this alternate dimension spell couldn't be used in actual battles. But if it was going to explode in a second, then Chen Zhao couldn't do anything. But Chen Zhao could build the alternate dimension and use it as a warehouse. Spatial rings were convenient, but they weren't limitless. Samuel had helped Chen Zhao expand the spatial ring in order to store the gift he'd given Chen Zhao, the castle. If Chen Zhao spent some time, He could build a super large alternate dimension and put some miscellaneous items inside. After thinking for a while, Chen Zhao made a decision. He could build a fixed alternate dimension in Mingyue Villa and store the entire villa inside. Once Mingyue Villa was in danger, he could store it in the alternate dimension to prevent it from being destroyed. Also, the supernatural organization's headquarters could create an alternate dimension. But Chen Zhao had to finish it at home first. Anyway, it was a huge project. It couldn't be completed in a day. Then, Chen Zhao thought of the river map. But the river map was much more advanced than the alternate dimension and the Tower of Trials. Not only did the river map involve space, but it also involved time. Chen Zhao had come into contact with many spatial spells. However, Chen Zhao had never seen or heard of a spell that involved time magic. There were some pseudo-time spells, such as West's Slow Field. It was a pseudo-time spell. But West's Slow Field didn't actually work on time. It worked on objects. If West could really control time, then Chen Zhao wouldn't be the strongest person in the organization. It should be West. Chapter 1603. The construction should be an alternate dimension. It sounded cool. It was supposed to be a new world. Actually, it wasn't like that at all. As long as there was enough power, magic or immortal power would have the same effect. Of course, immortal power contained more energy, so it would be faster to build an alternate dimension. There was no such thing as making rules, and there was no such thing as creation. It was like throwing a bucket into a lake and then pouring the water into one's own swimming pool. The lake here referred to nothingness. Nothingness was boundless, as vast as the universe. During the construction process, Chen Zhao had to leave behind some secret doors. These doors could let the spiritual qi of the world enter the alternate dimension and maintain its stability. If there were no secret doors, Chen Zhao would have to maintain the alternate dimension with his own power. Chen Zhao didn't have that much power to maintain an alternate dimension all the time. Secret doors could also let people enter the alternate dimension unknowingly. But as long as he hid the secret doors intentionally, he could almost prevent people from entering the alternate dimension. The secret door could be hidden anywhere, even underground. Unless it was in existence at the level of the handsome young man, it was impossible for anyone to break into the alternate space under normal circumstances. Of course, Chen Zhao also prepared a secret door dozens of meters in the air. This could let air enter the alternate dimension too. Chen Zhao didn't want to create a world without air. What he wanted was an alternate dimension that could at least satisfy basic survival needs. Or rather, it was a temporary shelter. Chen Zhao used an hour to create a space that was more than 100 square meters. It had to be said that it was a long and tedious task. With Chen Zhao's abilities, he would even need endless time to create a world the size of Earth, let alone a universe. 23rd Gen and Mana Bloody Mary got out of the car. Just then, a Chinese woman walked up to them. "Ms. Bloody Mary, can I have 10 minutes of your time?" Limu looked at the old woman. To be honest, she was still in disbelief when she found out about 23rd Gen. After all, he was a person who had lived for 149 years. Even in today's technologically advanced era, it was still unimaginable. "Sorry," 23rd Gen said calmly. "I don't like talking to strangers. If you have any requests, please tell my assistant." With her status, too many people wanted to get close to her. Too many people wanted to get close to her. If the opponent was at Chen Zhao's level, 23rd Gen was more than happy to communicate with him. As for the others, the 23rd generation wasn't interested at all. "Ms. Blood Mary, I'm here to communicate with you on behalf of the United States Anti-Terrorism Security Department, Mr. Mansari. If I want to communicate, I will only communicate with your president, not a security minister. Madam Blood Mary, I'm not here to discuss politics with you. I'm here to discuss the supernatural world," Li Mu said quickly. Actually, the Anti-Terrorism Security Department has also formed a supernatural team. "Oh, is there anything you can teach me?" 23rd Gen turned his head slightly and looked at Li Mu indifferently. "Or, do you think that my activities in the United States will affect your supernatural safety?" "No, of course that's not what I meant. In fact, it's our minister, who wants to cooperate and communicate with the Scarlet Church. Exchange?
How?
Does your team have the right to communicate with the Scarlet Church? Then, Lady Blood Mary, what qualifications do you think we need to communicate with you and the Scarlet Church? Complete 3 of my missions. As long as you can complete 3 missions, I will give you a chance. 23rd Gen turned around and entered the hotel. 23rd Gen's phone suddenly rang. Hello, old friend. How many years has it been since you last called me? Dear Miss Tammy, I heard that you've been messing around recently. Do you think I'm messing around? Little guy. Do you know what happened in Japan?
Japan?
What happened? The Stone of Slaughter was originally sealed. Although there have been some changes in recent years, the Stone of Slaughter won't break the seal immediately. However, because of your missions, many spiritualists went to the sealed area. In the end, they couldn't repair the seal. Instead, they were poisoned by the miasma of the Stone of Slaughter. Their souls were also devoured by the Stone of Slaughter. Now, the crack in the seal has expanded 10 times. The area where the sealed area is located has already been covered by the miasma. Now, the seal is really in danger of being broken. What? 23rd Gen was shocked. Now, the Japanese Supernatural General Council is staying in our Dragon Tiger Mountain Palace. They won't leave. They want me to go to Japan. Limu looked at 23rd Gen's back with a bitter smile. Since he had already said so much, she couldn't pester the 23rd generation anymore. When she was talking to 23rd Gen just now, she had to be very careful. She didn't dare to offend him or neglect him. Otherwise, it might turn into a diplomatic incident. She and her boss, Mansari, couldn't bear the responsibility. Neither of them could bear this kind of responsibility. Hey, boss. How is it? What's the lady's answer? She said that unless our team can complete at least 3 Scarlet missions, we don't have the right to talk to her on equal terms. Can you evaluate whether our team can complete 3 Scarlet missions? Boss, it's still too difficult for those people to complete the Scarlet missions. You're in charge of selecting and see if there are any missions that can be completed, Mansari said. Our team has been established for a while now. They've been performing the missions well. Now it's time for them to face the real test. Boss, I'm afraid that's too difficult. Li Mu's expression was serious. She had been in contact with some of the members of the newly formed team and recruited them into the team. It wasn't that the team was weak, but Li Mu felt that it was still lacking something. It was still too difficult for them to carry out the Scarlet missions at this time. Those people are all arrogant. If they really have the ability to complete the Scarlet missions, then I'll allow them to be arrogant and rude. If they can't even complete the Scarlet missions, then it'll give me a chance to reorganize the team. Alright then, I'll talk to Vestana. Li Mu and Vestana were Mansari's right-hand men. Vestana was the person in charge of the team, and she reported directly to Mansari. Chapter 1604. Boss is too impatient. Vestana smiled bitterly. Many people in the team have potential, but it's not time for them to face the real test yet. Vestana wasn't a spiritualist, but she was in charge of the team. The more spiritualists she interacted with, the more paranormal events she encountered. The more information she had. Thus, Vestana gradually gained an understanding of spiritualists' abilities. Especially since she'd seen a truly powerful spiritualist. Back in the Great Pagoda, Snow Mountain. That terrifying demon Kunkka. And that man even scarier than Kunkka. For Vestana, the experience was too deep for her to bear. Now, the team she was in charge of. The purpose of their existence was to replace the supernatural organization led by Chun Zhao. The best way to replace the supernatural organization was to defeat them. But Vestana knew that it was impossible. Mansari also knew that it was impossible. So, Mansari made a new request. She didn't need to defeat Chun Zhao and the supernatural organization led by him. At least, she had to be able to solve most missions. In fact, North America was a region with low supernatural events. The chances of supernatural events happening here weren't high either. Most of the incidents were ordinary supernatural incidents. For example, Kunkka's unsealing on the Great Pagoda Snow Mountain might not happen once in 100 years. So, She basically didn't need to worry about those super major events. Then, in the vast majority of paranormal incidents, Vistana's team could solve them before the supernatural organization. Then, the supernatural organization would gradually be marginalized. Eventually, it would be replaced by her team. An organization that didn't do anything would eventually be disbanded. This was Mansari's plan too, since she couldn't break up or control the supernatural organization forcefully. Then, she would boil them in warm water. Gradually, the supernatural organization wouldn't have any presence. Of course, Mansari wasn't the only one who knew about this plan. Only Li Mu and Vistana knew about this plan. When humans fought among themselves, they would always display shocking talent. Vistana picked up the phone and dialed a number. Brits, gather all the members of the psionic team. We have a mission. Miss Vistana, are you talking about everyone? Yes, everyone, Vistana said with certainty. Half an hour later, all the team members had gathered. As a subordinate team of the Anti-Terrorism Security Department, the psionic team had always been trained according to the military style in terms of discipline. Even the most rebellious members of the psionic ability team would obey the rules. This was something the supernatural organization couldn't compare to. Comparing the two organizations, the supernatural organization was more like an amateur team. Of course, discipline did not represent strength. Brits was the vice-captain of the psionic team. Miss Vistana, 23 members of the psionic squad have assembled. Blitz was the strongest in the team. He also had a nickname, Little Encyclopedia of Magic. He had some understanding and contact with almost every major magic system. From Eastern Taoist magic to African voodoo, European magic, and shaman magic, he had come into contact with them all. According to statistics, he knew thousands of spells. And he could use different combat methods and magic according to different enemies. Vistana nodded. Thank you. Vistana stood up from her seat and glanced at the psionic team members in the meeting hall. The leader has ordered for the psionic squad to complete 3 scarlet missions. Brits looked surprised. As for the others in the meeting hall, some were surprised, while others were happy. Some were worried, while others were excited. Miss Vistana, isn't this too much? Brits asked. What's so difficult about it? I think this is more in line with our position. The person who spoke was called Tank. He was the only strengthening spiritualist in the team. Tank was hot-tempered and easily angered, especially when he used magic to fight. He was especially easy to lose control. He was always on a rampage on the battlefield. And most of the time, he caused a certain amount of public damage. Of course, his battle record was also very outstanding. Don't forget, the last time our psionic team participated in the encirclement of Turin, the result was not satisfactory. That's because Turin escaped. We didn't have time to do anything, and Turin actually left Arma Island early, Tank said. If Turin didn't leave early, I would have smashed Turin into pieces and made it stay in Arma Island's waters forever. Then why didn't you rush to the port early? Because I was entangled, Tank said. Brits sneered and didn't argue with Tank anymore. In Brits's eyes, Tank was a simple-minded idiot with well-developed limbs. Bang! Tank slammed the table and stood up. What do you mean by that laugh? Whatever you think it means. Are you laughing at me? Tank shouted angrily. I want to duel you. Enough, I didn't call you here for you to argue, Vistana scolded. Shut up, both of you Brits. Brits returned to his seat. Tank grunted and sat back down as well. You can't refuse this mission. Of course, I know it's a bit difficult, but I hope you can do your best to complete it, Vistana said. Miss Vistana, don't worry, and leave the mission to me. I'll bring you good news, Tank said. Idiot, Brit snorted. What did you say? Enough. Just as Tank was about to lose his temper again, Vistana interrupted their argument. Let's discuss among ourselves and see which scarlet missions our party has the chance to complete. Then we'll pick them. It doesn't matter what mission it is. I'll use my iron fist to make those filthy monsters understand that this is the human world, and they should go back to the sewers or hell. Brits glanced at Tank and stood up again. There aren't many missions suitable for our team, and they're all quite difficult. I know it's difficult. That's why I hope you guys can do your best. Vestana sighed inwardly. She knew what Mansari was thinking. Mansari probably didn't have much hope for this mission. Maybe he just wanted the troublemakers in the psionic team to die. That way, Mansari could easily control the psionic team. Actually, a detailed plan can increase our chances of winning. Please remember this book's domain name. 9 Heavens Godly Emperor Mobile Version. Chapter 16:05. More, I'm here. Kalon waved his hand. Morse saw Kalan's figure from afar and strode towards him. Kalon, when did you come back to Los Angeles? Just arrived today, Kalon said, although they were a few years apart in age. But in fact, Kalon, who was older, was more like an elder. Of course, seniority wasn't important in the association. Plus, Moore was a casual person. She felt like she could talk to Kalon. So, she kept in touch with Kalon in private. It's my treat tonight, Moore said. Kalon looked at the golden credit card in Moore's hand. He was really envious. He wanted to say straightforwardly that it was his treat. But he didn't have enough money, so he couldn't ask. He was a few years older than Moore, but Moore was already self-supporting. But other than doing some temporary jobs, he still needed to ask his parents for money. And Moore was already earning a lot. Even if he finished school in the future, his salary might not be higher than Moore's. Most importantly, Moore's life was very different from his. In Colin's imagination, Moore's life was colorful. Right, I have a mission tonight. Do you want to come? Moore asked. Is that okay? Colin hesitated. He was worried about the danger. Of course, he was also worried that he would be a burden to Moore. Don't worry, it's just a small mission, Moore said with a smile. It's an abandoned church in West Street. There's an evil spirit there. It's not difficult. If there's a chance, I can give you a chance to fight. Can I? Colin had no confidence. Don't worry, no problem. Right, this is for you. Moore tossed a dagger to Colin. Colin took the dagger and looked at it. My dad seems to have one too. This is made of dragon bone, but your dad's is a refined magic tool. Yours is only engraved with some inscriptions. It's many times weaker. I see. Colin curled his lips, a bit disappointed. Don't mind it. This dragon bone dagger can probably be sold for tens of thousands of dollars in a magic shop. So, expensive? Colin's eyes widened in disbelief. It's expensive, but don't you dare sell it. Otherwise, if the people from the association find out that I'm selling something from the association, I'll be in big trouble. Then I'd better not. I don't want to hurt you. Colin was a very loyal person. When he heard that Mo would be punished for this, he was worried about this and that. It's fine, as long as you don't sell it for money. Of course, you're not allowed to use the dragon venomous dagger against ordinary people. The damage the dragon bone dagger does to ordinary people will be easily recognized. Oh, I know. Are you sure it's okay? It's fine. Our association has a lot of things to do with the dragon-owned dagger. We can even use it as a consumable item. Then why don't you sell it? Of course, it's to maintain the market price. Moer said matter-of-factly. If something is overflowing in the market, do you think the price will be high? A refined dragon bone dagger is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Isn't that more profitable than the ordinary dragon bone dagger in your hand? Can't we sell both at the same time? Colin said. However, Moore shook his head and said, if we sell both at the same time, then everyone will only buy the normal version. Then, we can find an alchemist to craft the refined version of the dragon-owned dagger. This is definitely cheaper than buying the refined version. To put it bluntly, the association needed to maintain the high price of the dragon bone dagger to protect its own interests. Of course, the members of the association could use it however they wanted. After all, there were plenty of dragon bones in the association. But they couldn't harm the association's interests. No organization would allow a traitor to betray their own people. That was why Moer warned Colin. Moer brought Colin to an abandoned church. There weren't many people living in this area. Standing in front of the church, Colin felt the desolation and eerie aura of the church. The church should be God's sanctuary, right? Why did it become like this? Something bad must have happened here, causing the holy spirits to abandon this place. No longer shrouded in holy light, it became even more impure than other places, Immerse said. In the end, this place became the nest of the impure. Immerse, didn't you say this was just a normal mission to exorcise evil spirits? Yeah, it's very normal. No matter how I look at it, the evil spirits that live here don't look like ordinary evil spirits. The evil spirits here are actually a priest who accidentally flipped through the demonic scriptures. Then, they summoned evil spirits from hell and ate all the nuns in the church. Hearing this, Colon couldn't help but shudder. What are you afraid of? I don't need you to face them head-on. Just stand beside me. As Immerse spoke, he created a clone and entered the abandoned church. After Immerse's clone entered the church, he saw all kinds of strange phenomena. Every time before these evil spirits attacked, they would use illusions to harass them. However, these illusions were effective against ordinary people, but not against spiritualists. Moreover, it was Immerse's clone in front of him. So, in the end, he still had to fight fair and square. This sinister spirit priest had a ferocious face. Under his black robe were the sad faces of the nuns. They wailed in unison. When ordinary people heard the sound, they would either go crazy or break down. Immerse's clone held the dragon bone dagger and stabbed the sinister spirit priest. If it was an ordinary evil spirit, the dragon bone dagger would have shattered his soul on the spot. However, the sinister spirit priest in front of him just flew back. The soul of a nun was thrown out and dissipated. It was Immerse's first time fighting such an opponent. This sinister spirit priest used the nun's soul as a substitute. Immerse didn't have any scruples. He could free the nun's soul by doing this. After losing a nun's soul, the sinister spirit priest immediately opened his mouth. Like a black hole, he began to suck in large mouthfuls of air. The surrounding air flow quickly flowed into the sinister spirit priest's mouth. Immerse's clone couldn't stay in place. Immerse's clone had a thought. He didn't waste time and directly self-destructed.
Boom.
With a loud bang, half of the abandoned church was destroyed. The nun's soul on the sinister spirit priest's body dissipated, and his body was badly damaged. The sinister spirit priest rushed out of the house like a madman. Colon saw the sinister spirit priest rushing over and couldn't help but feel nervous. Just one look at that terrifying evil creature was enough to make one's blood run cold. You?
Or me?
Immerse asked casually. Chapter 1606. Kellen thought for a while and gritted his teeth. I'll do it. Colon took a deep breath as he looked at the diabolic priest who was charging at him. With the dragonbone dagger in his hand, Kellen disappeared from the spot. Whoosh! The dragonbone dagger sliced through the priest's neck easily. Arg! The evil priest screamed, clutching his neck with an expression of extreme pain on his face. However, no matter how hard he tried, the severed neck could not heal. Kellen ran for a few hundred meters before stopping. He was a little excited, but also a little frightened. He had been practicing the magic book that an elite had left for him. He had learned about 70 to 80% of it. He could control his body and magic power, as well as increase his magic power. Under normal circumstances, he could easily run several times his previous distance. However, in that instant, he had unleashed all his magic power and stamina. In a very short time, he had reached an astonishing speed. However, this also caused him to be exhausted after running a few hundred meters. The priest's body fell to the ground. His head rolled off too. Then his body began to dissipate. In the end, all that was left was a decaying skeleton. Colon, you've done it, and you've done a great job, Moore praised. Actually, there was nothing to fear about the priest. At least for a spiritualist. Moreover, Moore had already used up most of his power. Kellen had an absolute advantage in terms of speed. He also had a weapon in his hand. If Colon could be more stable, it would not be a problem for him to deal with the diabolic priest alone. Of course, a newbie would inevitably panic when facing an evil spirit for the first time. In fact, Kellen had done very well. Let's find a place to sit. The two found a beach and sat down. How is it? Are you still scared?
No.
I've calmed down. Actually, as long as he took that step. It would be easier after that, of course. It would be relatively easier. Just like Chen Zhao back then. At the beginning, he could not go on a killing spree the first time. As the saying went, first time, second time. Now, Kellen was no longer scared.
He was more excited.
It was his first time killing an evil spirit. More, how am I compared to you now? Still too weak. I'm different from you, Moore said. Unless you really join the supernatural organization, we won't have the same resources. What a joke. Moore entered the training tower once a week. Even if Kolan came out every night to subdue demons, so what? Mo's battle experience would only increase. Korin, on the other hand, would have to find a dragon to fight every day. Otherwise, he would never be able to catch up to Moore. Not to mention, the various magic potions and tools were not something Kellen could compare to. There was also the meat of various magical creatures. The meat of some magical creatures wouldn't have much of an effect if it was only used once or twice. However, if it was consumed over a long period of time, the effects would be extraordinary. Take Aduz, for example. He was an ordinary person among ordinary people, and he was so old. Aduz had eaten too much meat from magical creatures. He didn't have to rely on any equipment to see the evil spirits. Aduz said he was a normal person and he already had some abilities that normal people didn't have. As for saying that he was not an ordinary person, he did not have magic power. To be precise, Aduz still had 1 point of mana points. Not to mention the combat power of the association. What resources? Mower shook his head. You're not from the association. I can't tell you. All right then. Kalon was already used to this. In the past 2 or 3 days, he often called Ang Elite. Ang Elite always used this to brush him off. He did not know if Ang Elite did not want to tell him, or if the association really had rules. But Kellen already felt that the supernatural organization was an organization with extremely strict rules. That night, Kellen and Mower asked for magic again and sparred occasionally. However, Mower did not want to waste the night with Kellen. After midnight, he left Kellen and slipped away. Kellen continued to practice on the beach. Mal had left behind a message that Kalon remembered in his heart. That was to practice diligently. In the association, from the president to the ordinary members, everyone practiced magic when they had nothing to do, or they studied their battle techniques. Kellen felt that he wanted to defeat his father. In that case, hard training was indispensable. Mr. Chen, are you planning to rebuild the original villa, or do you need to design a new building? Felwood asked. Redesign. I hope that the design will be sturdier this time. Even if there's a hurricane like last time, it will be unscathed. The project budget is $20 million. Okay, I understand. Felwood was overjoyed. He had thought that this project was just a favor, and that it would be enough to charge Chen Zhao some cost. He did not expect Chen Zhao to give him another big project budget. Although $20 million was not Chen Zhao's biggest project budget, it was still very big. But for Felwood Cisco, it was already very big. You know where Mirror Lake is. Go measure it yourself and send me the design. Okay, Mr. Chen. What style do you want? Same old, modern style, Chen Zhao said. Oh. Open a semi-enclosed field in the forest. What's the specific function of the field? Felwood asked. A place for training and shooting, Chen Zhao said. Many of my friends are members of the shooting club. Okay, I'll hire an architect to design the field too, Felwood said. Okay, that's all for now. Oh, I remember. I need to widen and deepen the outer river of Mirror Lake. I ordered a yacht recently. Right now, the depth and width of the outer river are not suitable for super yachts. Also, I need a dock. I don't want it to be like the old Mirror Lake, where the yacht could only stay in the middle of the lake. Yes, I understand. That's all for now, Chen Zhao said. Okay. If Mr. Chen has any other requests, you can contact me anytime. After hanging up, Chen Zhao suddenly stopped in his tracks. He turned his head and looked behind him on the sidewalk. A familiar figure was following him. That guy again? Kalwan saw Chen Zhao in front of him stop and look at him. He was slightly shocked. He found me again? When Kellen had seen Chen Zhao just now, he had been extremely happy. He felt that he could definitely take revenge this time. Chapter 1607. Kalon saw the man smile at him and then turned to leave. Kalon was all too familiar with that smile. He'd seen it twice already. This was the third time. Kalon quickened his pace and chased after him. Kalon saw Chen Zhao turn into an alley. Kalon followed at once. But as soon as he turned the corner, a punch greeted him. Wah! Kalon clutched his stomach and fell to the ground. You're so despicable. Chen Zhao glanced at Kalon. Who has time to waste with you? You always come to provoke me. I'm already merciful enough not to cripple you. With that, Chen Zhao swaggered away. Kalon was filled with grief and indignation. He'd thought that now that he'd improved greatly, he could definitely take revenge on Chen Zhao. So, when he saw Chen Zhao again, he was overjoyed. But in the end, he'd been tricked. He hadn't even used his ultimate move and was tricked. Kalon was furious. He was clearly stronger, but why couldn't he beat Chen Zhao? Chen Zhao didn't care about Kalon's frustration. He'd come to Alex's law firm to take a look. Alex had moved her law firm to Los Angeles. Chen Zhao made a few calls and confirmed the address. Then he walked around the area. Finally, he found Alex's law firm. Chen Zhao entered Alex's office. It's really hard to find here. Chen Zhao looked at Alex's office. It wasn't very big, but it was in a good location. This area was a financial district surrounded by tall buildings. But after Alex moved in, it seemed to be the same as before and hadn't been renovated. Why don't you renovate? Your law firm is a famous one in San Francisco. Now that you're in Los Angeles, it'll affect your firm's reputation. If you can pay me more, I'll be happy to renovate, Alex said, unconcerned. I have to pay your law firm at least $5 million a year, and you're telling me you don't have the money to renovate? It's not a one-off payment. Plus, the real profit of $5 million is less than $2 million. Alex pretended to be poor before Chen Zhao, but Chen Zhao didn't believe a single word. If you are really short of money, I can lend it to you. Chen Zhao would never say something like, I'm sponsoring you. With Alex's personality, even if it was just a polite greeting, she would take advantage of it. No need. If you really want to help me, then sponsor me. As expected, Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. Shall we go out for lunch? Let's go to a restaurant. I heard that it's really expensive. Alex looked at him brightly. Even if he couldn't scam Chen Zhao out of money, he could at least scam him out of a meal.
Fine.
Chen Zhao shrugged. Seriously, do you really need money? Do you know how much a year's rent for this 1,000 square meter floor is? I'm starting to regret listening to you and moving the business to Los Angeles. Chen Zhao was stunned. Then he remembered. Alex moved her law firm to Los Angeles. Then her old contacts, clients, and business in San Francisco would be gone. Apart from the business he had given her, she was basically penniless in Los Angeles. All her connections, clients, and business had to start all over again. Chen Zhao wrote a check and handed it to Alex. I'm borrowing it. To start her business again, she would need a lot of money. Alex probably didn't lack money. She just didn't want to use it on renovation. But without a beautiful facade, what would clients think? It was fine if it was an ordinary customer. But rich clients wouldn't give their business to Alex's law firm if they didn't have a good first impression. Alex glanced at the number on the check. When are you returning it? Up to you. Chen Zhao pursed his lips. Suddenly, Alex tightened her collar. You're not trying to do something to me, are you? Give me back the check, Chen Zhao said with a dark expression. Okay, I'm free today. I'll get off work early. Let's go to your restaurant. You're the boss. Why are you pretending to get off work? Alex and Chen Zhao went to Marina's restaurant. She was a bit jealous of Chen Zhao's restaurant. She told Chen Zhao many times to remember her if he needed investments. Marina's business was really good. It was noon, and the restaurant was almost full. At night, there were more than 100 people waiting in line. The restaurant served the nameless wine every day.
It was limited, though.
Ever since Chen Zhao got all the shares of Marina's restaurant, He provided the nameless wine and some special ingredients to Marina's restaurant. This caused Marina's business to be even better than before. Marina's restaurant's daily turnover could reach $1 million. Sometimes it was a few $100,000. Last month it had reached $18 million. Just the restaurant's net income alone was tens of millions of dollars. No one would doubt that Marina's restaurant was the most profitable restaurant in LA. Also, Steven often came here too. He would do live promotions for Chen Zhao's restaurant. There were also many celebrities who came to Marina's restaurant to spend money every few days just to have a chance encounter with Steven. Of course, most of the customers were attracted by the recipes and wine provided by Marina Restaurant. To be honest, Marina's restaurant's income was comparable to a mid-sized company. The two of them sat by the window. Alex didn't know how to save money for Chen Zhao at all. A table of dishes would probably cost tens of thousands of dollars. Chen Zhao had never been so extravagant. Chen, doesn't your restaurant have a Michelin rating? Yes, Chen Zhao said nonchalantly. A while ago, the Michelin guide wanted to give Marina's restaurant a 1-star rating, but I didn't accept it.
Why?
Do I need a tire seller to judge my restaurant? Plus, I'm only a 1-star. I don't care. The Michelin guide never gives a new restaurant a 3-star rating. It's always upgraded 1 star at a time. That's why I don't need it, Chen Zhao said calmly. My restaurant's business is already good enough, Chen Zhao said calmly. Even if I have a Michelin star rating, it won't bring me more income. Why should I care about that tire seller's attitude? The Michelin star rating was just a Western standard. If the tire seller could really bring him income, Chen Zhao wouldn't mind putting a Michelin star in his restaurant. But with Marina's restaurant's current business, he had to increase his income. The only way was to increase the price and not the Michelin star rating. Moreover, a 1-star rating might lower his business. Chapter 16:08. Alex and Chen Zhao walked out of the restaurant. Speaking of which, do you want an IOU? Alex glanced at Chen Zhao. If it's just a check, I have 10,000 ways to go back on my word. The money on the check is Jerlin's dowry.
Can you bear to take it?
Shameless. Alex glared at Chen Zhao. She was Chen Zhao's and the brewery's legal advisor. She'd clearly seen the brewery's accounts and Chen Zhao's bank account details. She knew very well how much Chen Zhao earned each month. The money he'd lent her was only 1/20th of his monthly income. She knew too well how much Chen Zhao could earn. Even most of the world's top 500 might not be more profitable than Chen Zhao. Even Chen Zhao's net worth was just below the top 500. But Chen Zhao's net worth was real. Many of the world's tycoons built their wealth by piling up their stocks. When the stocks of their companies performed well in the stock market, their net worth would be high. If their stocks performed poorly in the stock market, their net worth would be low. It was common for billions of yuan to evaporate at the drop of a hat. But Chen Zhao was different. His income was like a money printing machine. Unless the dollar depreciated, Chen Zhao wouldn't lose money at all. Alex even encouraged Chen Zhao to list their beer brand so that she could earn a fortune in the stock market. But she knew that Chen Zhao wouldn't agree. For Chen Zhao, if Dashin beer went on the market, then his virtual net worth would skyrocket, perhaps by several times. But in the long run, Chen Zhao would suffer a huge loss. Why did those rich people who made a fortune in the stock market and property market like to invest in real estate? Because real estate represented stable value. Chen Zhao held absolute shares of Dashin beer. It was a super high-quality fixed asset. The people who sold it were also people who had actual benefits with Chen Zhao. If he listed it, he could indeed earn a fortune. But he would lose the stable long-term dividends. If there was a financial crisis or a stock market crash, it wouldn't affect Chen Zhao. This was the greatest value of real estate. Stability. The two of them walked on the street, chatting about all sorts of things. Just then, a woman walked toward Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao paused, and so did the woman. The woman glanced at Alex beside Chen Zhao. Then, he brushed past Chen Zhao without saying anything. Chen, I have to remind you that you have a family. What are you thinking? Don't fill in the blanks yourself, okay? Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. You dare say that you have nothing to do with that woman? It's related to Jerlin and Feilai's previous relationship, Chen Zhao said calmly. Oh, is it your ex-girlfriend in China? Alex asked. Feilai told you about this? Chen Zhao was surprised. Alex had been to the Bright Moon Villa twice. The first time, he followed Chen Zhao stubbornly. The other one was little Jerlin's birthday party. No, Jerlin told me, Alex said. He really didn't expect to meet his first love here. To be honest, Chen Zhao really had nothing to do with her. If he hadn't suddenly met her on the main road today, Chen Zhao's only impression of her was probably her name. As for feelings? Bullshit feelings. Time had long since diluted those feelings. When they broke up, it felt like the world was collapsing, and the world was ending. But that feeling only lasted for 2 or 3 days. Then it mostly recovered. Not just her. Even if Jerlin was revived and stood before Chen Zhao couldn't get back together with Jerlin. As your ex-girlfriend, you don't know she's in LA? We haven't contacted each other for 2 years. Why would I know? You really have nothing to do with her? You don't have the right to ask me that, right? Feilai's the one asking me, not you. Chen Zhao said nonchalantly. Chen Zhao said casually. Chen Zhao's casualness. Chen Zhao's casualness. Indeed, it had nothing to do with their past relationship. After all, when Chen Zhao saw the woman, he'd been surprised at the beginning. Then his attitude and personality hadn't changed. It was enough to show that Chen Zhao had let go of her long ago. Sun Min looked back at Chen Zhao's back. She also didn't expect to meet Chen Zhao here. She'd heard that Chen Zhao had left the country, but she didn't expect him to be in LA. In 2 years, Chen Zhao seemed to have changed a lot. Just like Chen Zhao, Sun Min didn't have any feelings for him anymore. Sun Min and Chen Zhao's breakup was a bit utilitarian, but at least the two parted on good terms. Neither of them made a big fuss. Sun Min was also glad that she'd broken up with Chen Zhao. After all, her career had improved by leaps and bounds after that. Sun Min's trip to America was like a business trip. This time, she was here to visit the most luxurious place in the world, Beverly Hills. But after this trip, the luxury stores along the streets of Beverly Hills didn't seem like much. They weren't livelier or more upscale than the other places she'd been to. These kinds of famous brands and luxury stores could be found everywhere in the world. Sun Min was somewhat disappointed. But Sun Min hadn't been to the truly luxurious places in Beverly Hills. They were the manors that the rich lived in. The manors and villas of the rich were the places where poverty truly limited one's imagination. The current Sun Min could be considered an elite at most. She didn't even have the chance to see the real faces of those luxurious manors. For example, Chen Zhao's Mingyue Villa was in Beverly Hills. Many manors were located in locations that weren't worse than Mingyue Villa. 1/10 of the world's superyachts were gathered in Beverly Hills. Just thinking about this ratio, one would know how many rich people there were in Beverly Hills. Sun Min visited a few luxury stores. After buying a few things, she lost interest. The prices here weren't cheaper than other places. The customers here weren't necessarily richer than other places either. In fact, the customers who came to these luxury stores were mostly tourists from other places. Most of them were like Sun Min, tourists from other places. Sun Min's heart jumped. She took out her phone and looked through it. Since she'd met Chen Zhao, she might as well ask him out for a meal. But after a long time, she couldn't find Chen Zhao's number. Sun Min pursed her lips. She seemed to have deleted his number long ago. Oh, there was also the X group. Let's see if he's still there. She looked through the chats of her classmates, but couldn't find Chen Zhao's message. Chen Zhao's account was still in the group, but he seemed to have stopped spamming. Chapter 16:09. In fact, this student group was basically abandoned. He hadn't received a single message in a few days. Sun Min even wondered if Chen Zhao still needed to use X. After all, Chen Zhao had been abroad for 2 years. Sun Min tried to send a message. Does anyone know how to contact him? After a few minutes, a private message popped up. Sun Min opened it and saw that it was Professor Lee who taught neurosurgery. Sun, you want Chen Zhao's contact information? I remember you guys broke up, right? Yeah, we broke up a long time ago. After a while, Misley replied, Do you know that Chenjiao has been abroad for 2 years?
I know.
I just wanted to contact him all of a sudden, Sun Min replied. I see. He did give me his number after he left the country, and he's called me a few times in the past 2 years. Mr. Li was also the only person in China that Chenjiao had given him his phone number. After all, he was Chenjiao's mentor and had taken good care of him in school. Chenjiao was in the worst period of his life. Teacher Li had also called him to comfort him. So, after Chenjiao went abroad, he would still think of him. During festivals, Chenjiao would call her or send her a message to congratulate her. Teacher Li, can you give me his phone number if it's convenient? Why do you need his contact information? I still have some of his things here. I plan to send them to him. Teacher Li thought for a moment.
All right.
Actually, other students had asked for Chenjiao's contact information before. However, most of the time, those students were just there to prepare for the recording. Or maybe he could have a class reunion to show off. Ms. Li didn't give him anything. Chenjiao wouldn't go back to China for the reunion anyway. Professor Li also heard that Chenjiao was doing well abroad. At least he was doing better than most of his students. Therefore, the students who flaunted their wealth basically had no advantage over Chenjiao. Chenjiao didn't say much about his situation abroad. However, Ms. Li could tell that Chenjiao's family and career were both pretty good. I heard that his second daughter was born recently. He also had a picture of Chenjiao's 2 daughters. Now, Sun Min wanted his number. Ms. Li knew that Sun Min was Chenjiao's ex-girlfriend. However, he didn't think that Sun Min and Chenjiao would get back together. That was why he decided to give him Chenjiao's contact number. Ms. Li then sent Chenjiao's overseas phone number to Sun Min. Sun Min, he's the father of 2 children now. If there's nothing important, don't disturb their lives. When Sun Min saw Teacher Li's message, she couldn't help but feel amused. Even if he had to eat a pile of shit, he wouldn't go back to eat grass. What's more, what did her ex-boyfriend do? He was able to make her unable to forget him. Chenjiao was sunbathing on the beach. In the end, after closing his eyes for a while, he found that his body was covered with sand. Jerlin held a small plastic shovel and kept shoveling sand from Chenjiao's body. Little Larissa grabbed a handful of sand and sprinkled it on Chenjiao. Chenjiao did not know whether to laugh or cry. Baby, what are you guys doing?
Wow.
Sister, yai. Little Larissa immediately cried out nervously. The first words little Larissa learned were not daddy or mommy, but big sister. Because little Jerlin patiently taught little Larissa to call her big sister every day. This made Chenjiao and Fei Lai angry for a few days. Their greatest joy had been taken away by little Jerlin. Seeing that Chenjiao had woken up, little Jerlin immediately hid the shovel behind her. Nothing. Little Jerlin had a guilty expression. She avoided Chenjiao's gaze, and her eyes darted around. Chenjiao laughed in anger and pushed the sand off his body. He picked up little Jerlin and little Larissa and tossed them into the water. He told them to drink some salty water. Little Larissa wiped the sand off her face. He found another fish in the water. Grabbing the struggling fish, he threw it at Chenjiao. Bad, bad. Chenjiao caught the fish and tossed it back into the sea. Spiritualists like Chenjiao basically wouldn't kill living things unless they wanted to eat or drink. This was probably respect for life. Chenjiao wasn't the only one. Most spiritualists were like this too. Unless it was a voodoo magic that required the blood of living creatures as a sacrifice. Under normal circumstances, they would try to kill as little as possible. Spiritualists believed in fate. In Buddhist terms, it was karma. Wantonly killing living things would result in karma. Chenjiao believed it too. He didn't think that his fate was up to him. After all, he'd seen truly awesome people before. Those powerful existences believed in fate more. They didn't even think that his fate was up to him. Why did Chenjiao think that he could change his fate? Those who thought they could defy the heavens and change their fate were the truly ignorant ones. Anyway, Chenjiao still respected the world. If he really broke up his family to change his fate like in novels, then he wouldn't be awesome. He would be stupid. After playing with his 2 daughters on the beach, Chenjiao carried them back to the cliff. Just then, the butler said, "Master, there's a call for you. It's from an unknown number."
Huh.
Butler, your voice changed.
Did you?
Yes, master. I've sent your request to the head office. The company did it immediately. Chun Zhao didn't expect this AI company to be so diligent. Actually, this was because Chun Zhao didn't know these companies well. For example, this AI butler company. They didn't have many customers, but all of them were billionaires. So, they paid great attention to each customer's request. As long as it was a reasonable request and they could do it, they would all improve it. Of course, if the request was unreasonable or too much, they would choose to ignore it. Call that number back. Dialing. Beep. Hello, who called me just now? Chun Zhao asked. Chun Zhao. I'm Sun Min. Chun Zhao was stunned. Sun Min? How did she have his number? Oh, hello. Huh? It's been 2 years and you've learned to be polite. Compared to Chun Zhao's stiffness, Sun Min was relaxed and relaxed. Chun Zhao, I heard that you went abroad. After that, your number in China became invalid. How are you now? I'm fine. Chun Zhao touched his nose. I saw you on the street and saw a woman beside you. I didn't want to cause unnecessary misunderstandings, so I didn't greet you. When are you free? Let's have a meal together? Please remember this book's domain name, mobile version. Chapter 1610. Sorry, I'm busy with work. I don't have much time. Okay. Sun Min wasn't surprised that Chun Zhao had rejected her invitation. Is that woman yours? Sister-in-law. Chun Zhao said. Sun Min was speechless. She thought that Alex was Chun Zhao's girlfriend or wife. She didn't expect her to be Chun Zhao's sister-in-law. What a pity. It's rare to meet an old friend in a foreign place. I'll only be abroad for half a month. If I miss this chance, I don't know when I'll see you again. Hearing Sun Min's words, Chun Zhao thought to himself, then let's never meet again. Of course, Chun Zhao wouldn't say that. There will always be a chance. Chun Zhao would rather meet a high school classmate like Li Qiong. He didn't want to have a meal with Sun Min either. Li Qiong was utilitarian, but everyone was like that. But from Sun Min's tone, Chun Zhao felt that she was giving him charity. Moreover, Chun Zhao's impression of Sun Min had already been ruined when they broke up. Something like being friends after breaking up? That was pure bullshit. Chun Zhao didn't believe it. Okay, I won't disturb you anymore. We'll talk next time. Sun Min hung up decisively. Chun Zhao was considering if he should change his number. But then he realized that it was too troublesome. Nowadays, a phone number was related to too many things. After thinking for a long time, Chun Zhao gave up on the idea. Changing his phone number just for Sun Min was a big price to pay. Plus, he could just blacklist her number. If she called again and couldn't get through after 1 or 2 tries, she should understand. Just then, a car entered Mingyue Villa. However, the car stopped on the highway above the beach. Chun Zhao looked over and saw Kalon get out of the car. Kalon was very unwilling, very unwilling. Especially after Chun Zhao's sneak attack in the morning. So, he went straight to Chun Zhao's house. He wanted to take revenge on Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao took the elevator down to the beach. This time, Kalon was full of vigor. He believed that he wouldn't lose this time. There was a reason why he'd lost the last few times. The first time, he hadn't awakened. The second time, he'd used too much energy. The third time was this morning when he was ambushed by this guy. But things were different now. He had already recovered. Moreover, there was no chance for Chun Zhao to launch a sneak attack now. Kid, why are you here again? Chun Zhao looked at Kalon, both annoyed and amused. Why didn't this brat learn his lesson? However, it could still bring him some fun. I'm not who I used to be.
When was the past?
Cut the crap. Come. This time I'll let you attack me first, Kellen said as he hooked his finger. I'll attack you first? Are you sure? Of course. Don't say I didn't give you a chance, Kellen boasted shamelessly. If you lose this time, I will throw you into the sea to feed the sharks. I'll also throw you into the sea to feed the sharks. Kalon was not to be outdone. Okay, then I won't hold back. Chun Zhao clenched his fists. Come, this time I'll make sure you won't even be able to touch my body, Kellen said confidently. Chun Zhao charged at Kalon. Kalon held his breath and stared at Chun Zhao's moderate speed. He sneered inwardly. He could dodge the speed with his eyes closed. Watch my left uppercut. Kellen watched as Chun Zhao raised his left arm and moved his body. However, just as he moved, he felt a sudden pain in his stomach. Kellen clutched his stomach and fell onto the sand. You're too despicable. How am I despicable? Chun Zhao grinned at Kellen. Kid, you're still too young. Fighting isn't that simple. You're despicable. If you didn't say anything, I wouldn't have fallen for it. Okay, I'll give you another chance. Rest, and we'll fight again later. It was rare to have someone to waste time with. Chun Zhao didn't plan on letting Kellen go. Chun Zhao didn't use too much strength in that punch. Otherwise, Kellen would probably be bedridden for a few more days. Holding his stomach, Kellen sat on the sand and sulked. After a while, Kellen suddenly jumped up and pounced at Chun Zhao without a word. Earlier, he'd been ambushed by Chun Zhao repeatedly. It wasn't too much for him to ambush Chun Zhao now. That was what Kellen thought. However, Chun Zhao saw Kellen charging at him. He suddenly grabbed a handful of sand and tossed it.
Ah!
My eyes. Thud. Chun Zhao kicked Kellen away. You're too despicable. You actually ambushed me. Chun Zhao criticized Kellen seriously. You ambushed me before. Why don't you say you're despicable? But I succeeded, so I'm in the right. You didn't succeed, so you're in the wrong. What kind of bullshit is that? Kellen almost spat blood in anger. I won, so I'm in the right. Isn't that reason enough? Kellen stood up again, unconvinced. This time, he'd learned his lesson. When he charged forward, he hit a handful of sand in his hand. To be honest, Kellen had been led astray by Chun Zhao. However, before he could reach Chun Zhao lifted his foot and kicked up another patch of sand.
Ah!
My eyes. Thud. Kellen was about to cry. Why were there such despicable people in the world? Kellen scrambled into the sea. After a while, he could barely open his eyes. But now, they were completely bloodshot. Come here. Kellen looked at Chun Zhao. He wouldn't touch the beach no matter what. Here, the seawater could wash over him. Chun Zhao couldn't use sand to trick him anymore. Chun Zhao walked to the area where the waves washed over him. You think you can beat me here? I won't lose this time. Kellen gritted his teeth and stared at Chun Zhao. Then come. Chun Zhao crooked his finger at him. This time, Kellen didn't hide his strength anymore. His speed suddenly exploded. Chun Zhao was surprised. Spiritualist? This kid was actually a spiritualist? But this kid's magic power was really weak. Did he have 100 magic power points? Plus, he seemed to be an enhanced spiritualist that favored speed. But on this muddy beach, his speed was much slower. It would be good if he could use 60 to 70% of his original speed. Kellen charged to Chun Zhao, but Chun Zhao still didn't move. It seemed that when Chun Zhao really used his speed, Kellen couldn't react at all. Kellen thought gleefully. Kellen raised his right arm and swung it at Chun Zhao's face. But just then, Chun Zhao suddenly grabbed Kellen's right arm and threw him over his shoulder. Kellen screamed in pain and was thrown 3 to 4 meters away. With a splash, he fell into the waves. Kellen choked on seawater several times before climbing up pathetically. How can you keep up with my movements? Chapter 16:11. Chun Zhao smiled. Kalon looked at Chun Zhao's evil smile. You're not the only special person in this world. Colin's heart tightened. He understood what Chun Zhao meant. You too.
Cut the crap.
Didn't you want to defeat me? Kalon finally didn't dare to be careless anymore. He no longer thought that Chun Zhao's earlier defeat was a coincidence or a trick. Chun Zhao had never been serious from start to finish. Come on, what are you waiting for? Do it. Kalon took a deep breath and used all his magic power.
Ah!
Roaring, Kalon charged at Chun Zhao.
Bang!
Kalon hadn't touched Chun Zhao yet. Chun Zhao's fist flew toward him. Kalon's body flew more than 10 meters in the sea. Colin's mind was a mess. The punch had destroyed his confidence. The seawater washed Colin back to Chenjiao. Chenjiao grabbed Colin by the back of his collar and threw him on the beach. "Kid, I like you." Chenjiao's words scared Colin. Colin felt the muscles on his, but suddenly contract. Chenjiao's face darkened. "It's not what you think." "What is it? Do you want to feed the sharks?" "I don't want to," Colin answered honestly. "Then come here every day and spend an hour or two with me." "Okay," Colin answered decisively. But in his heart, he was thinking that after leaving today, he would never appear before Chenjiao again. He would rather die than come here and embarrass himself. At least not in a short period of time. The difference between them was too obvious. Colin wasn't an idiot. "Are you thinking of never coming back after you leave this time?" No, I didn't think so." "It's fine. I have a way to make you come find me tomorrow," Chenjiao said nonchalantly. Colin's heart trembled. Chenjiao was also a spiritualist. Chenjiao probably had a spell that Colin didn't know about that could control him. "Yes, it's what you're thinking. I'll cast a spell on you. Only I can undo it." Colin was scared out of his wits. "Stop messing with me. You're the one who delivered yourself to me. You said that I let you off the few times you provoked me. Since you've taken the initiative, I have to show you my respect." "I don't need your respect. Please don't show me any respect." Colin wanted to cry, but no tears came out. "Right, what's your name?" "Colin." "Okay. Colin, here, put this on." Chenjiao tossed Colin a boxing outfit. "What do you want?" Colin was not having it. "Aren't you here to be my sparring partner? If that's the case, how can I reject you?" Chenjiao said matter-of-factly. "Put it on and practice with me for 2 hours." I don't want. What, sparring partner?"
It was just getting beaten up.
"Don't want it? It doesn't matter. Since you want to spar with me, I don't mind either." Colin decisively put on his boxing suit. However, as soon as he put it on, he realized something. The boxing suit was very heavy. The cotton seemed to be wrapped in metal. The entire suit weighed at least a few dozen kilograms. Not to mention other things, just the 2 baffles alone weighed 20 kilograms. "Why is it so heavy?" "Oh, there's a titanium plate inside," Chenjiao said. In fact, compared to most metals, titanium was actually quite light. "Okay, come on, stand up straight," Chenjiao said. Colin wanted to cry. Chenjiao tried 2 punches, both of which were extremely light. Colin didn't feel that it was too heavy. He tossed away the negative emotions in his mind and started to treat it seriously. "Raise the baffles higher with both hands," Chenjiao reminded. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Chenjiao's punches were extremely fast. Colin realized that Chenjiao's punching speed wasn't any slower than his. No, more accurately, it was much faster than his punching speed. "Are you a speed spiritualist too?" Colin asked. While punching, Chenjiao shook his head. "No, I'm more inclined toward strength." "How is that possible?" "You're so fast." "After strengthening strength, I can release strength into every muscle in my body. Of course, the potential energy I can release is greater than a normal person. But I can only feel your speed, not your strength." Of course, Chenjiao didn't use any strength at all. He was just trying to control his strength and speed. If he just punched quickly, Colin might not even be able to leave a piece of flesh intact. "You want to taste my punch?" Colin thought for a moment. He was already wearing such a heavy defensive suit with metal plates inside. What was there to be afraid of? "Come, let me test your true strength." Chenjiao didn't want to kill Colin. "Get ready." "I'm ready."
"Come."
"Don't separate your feet."
"Put them back."
"How can I stand if I don't?" "I'm afraid I'll break your heels." Chenjiao rolled his eyes. "Are you really that strong?" Colin didn't believe it.
"Put them back. Put them back."
"Fine." With that, Chenjiao punched out. Chenjiao's control of strength was extremely clever. The moment his fist landed on the baffle, Chenjiao retracted his strength. Colin's body felt light. He floated up and flew more than 10 meters away. Colin wanted to climb up, but he realized that his arms couldn't support him. His hands kept shaking. The baffle had also deformed, revealing the metal plate hidden in the cotton. Kalwan turned pale with fright. What a powerful strength. He didn't believe it at first, but now he did. If he didn't have this shield, Chen Zhao's punch would have definitely killed him. Sir, teach me how to use magic. Practice hard. There's no technique. You'll understand after practice, Chen Zhao said calmly. I'm already working hard.
How?
I run 10 kilometers every day. What, you don't believe me? I do. But for you, is running 10 kilometers every day considered hard work? Why not? If you run 100 kilometers every day, then that's hard work. 100 kilometers? How is that possible? I can't spend all my time running. Then I can't help it. How about you participate in more unconventional battles?
Chen Zhao said.
That way, you'll be more familiar with how to use your strength. Sir, do you fight often? Yes, I do. Then, next time you fight, bring me along. Chen Zhao shook his head. We're too weak. You're not suitable to face the opponents I choose. Chen Zhao wouldn't participate in the supernatural organization's missions. Opponents that required Chen Zhao's help were basically terrifying enemies. Chen Zhao didn't think that Colin had the right to participate. He might not even be qualified to watch. Please remember this book's domain name, Nine Heavens Divine Emperor Mobile Version. Chapter 1612. Mr. Isfar, your price is too high. If our company follows your price, we won't have any profit to speak of. Sun Min looked at Risfar. Sun Min worked for a foreign trade company. This time, she was representing the company to negotiate with Risfar. Risfar was a giant in the shipping industry, but his price was too high. I can't do anything about that. Oil prices have been rising for the past 6 months. If I keep the original price, my company won't have any profit either. It wasn't that Risfar wanted to make things difficult for Sun Min, but it was difficult to do business in this world. Especially in the shipping industry, it had always been suppressed by oil prices. If oil prices were high, he had to raise the price. Why did oil prices determine almost all goods in the world? Because oil prices determined the price of shipping, and the shipping price of merchants' goods increased. Thus, they had to raise the price of high-quality goods to maintain their own profits. In China, the property market also determined the price of goods in the mainland. The logic was the same. Risfar had actually started to invest in other industries recently. For example, the hotel business partnership with Dell. Now, their first hotel could be said to be in full swing. It could even be said to be very successful. The huge profits made Risfar want to immediately abandon the shipping industry and turn to the hotel industry. Of course, after calming down, Risfar thought more. The success of the first hotel and the huge profits made him forget everything. However, the success of the first hotel didn't mean that the second and third would be successful. All his connections and businesses were in the shipping industry. If he rashly changed the industry and abandoned the business he was most familiar with, selling the shipping industry that he was most familiar with would be neglecting the essentials. The shipping industry couldn't make a lot of money at the moment. But the advantage was obvious. It wouldn't depreciate. That was the advantage of the shipping industry. No matter what, he wouldn't lose money. Because no matter how high the oil prices were, he still had to ship things. But the hotel industry was different. If he made a lot of money, if he made a loss, then he would make a huge loss. Once a hotel made a huge loss, he would either be stubborn and hang on, or he would sell the hotel at a huge loss. If that's the case, I'm afraid we can't cooperate anymore, Sun Min said. Sun Min was threatening Risfar. After all, Risfar was not the only company in the shipping industry. Miss Sun, only my company's freighters still have empty spots on the west coast of America. The other company's freighters are basically full. Also, the shipping companies that aren't as big as my company will definitely quote a higher price than mine, unless you're willing to transfer your company's goods to other ports. But if you do that, your costs will increase again, Risfar said. It could be said that Sun Min didn't have many choices now. It could even be said that her only option now was Risfar's company. Sun Min pondered for a while and said with a smile, Mr. Risfar, don't tell me you're planning to come back empty after your cargo ship arrives at China's port. Risvar was stunned. As someone in his line of work, of course, he knew that there was a difference in cost between an empty ship and transporting goods to the shore. Miss Sun, even if your company has a company to transport, it's impossible to fill a 10,000-ton freighter. Each of Risvar's cargo ships could carry more than 10,000 containers. The cargo business that Sun Min could provide them could at most carry a few hundred to 1,000 containers. To Risvar, it could indeed save some costs, but it was far from enough for him to lower the price. A 100,000-ton freighter had to carry at least 6,000 containers to barely break even. Our company has a wide network in the mainland. Don't forget that our company's main business is foreign trade. Many companies' products go through our company, especially the foreign trade of agricultural products. I can promise you that if we can cooperate, our company can provide your cargo ship with 3,000 containers at China's port. Risvar was tempted. He pondered for a while and said, "If that's the case, I can lower the price by 10%. 10%. That's not enough, Mr. Risvar. We hope to get more discounts. Also, I think we can cooperate for a long time instead of a one-time deal." Risvar was very tempted by Sun Min's proposal, 15% discount. If we can cooperate more in the future, the discount can be even higher. Sun Min finally revealed a satisfied smile. The 15% discount had already met her expectations. Then it was time to sign the contract. She only needed to sign it. "Miss Sun, I'm impressed by your shrewdness. Are all Chinese so good at doing business?" "Mr. Risvar, it's not that I'm shrewd, but we're not idiots. We all know that only a win-win situation can continue the cooperation, right?" "You're right." "Oh, Miss Sun, are you interested in working for my company?" "Sorry, I haven't considered that yet." Of course, Sun Min wouldn't take Risvar's words seriously. She heard such compliments almost every day. "Miss Sun, there's a party at my house this weekend. Can I have the honor of inviting you?" "Of course, it's my honor." People in Europe and the United States expand their social network through parties. Therefore, the party culture was very popular. There would be parties for everything. For example, Risvar had 2 or 3 parties a month. The Chinese had a drinking culture. Actually, the two were similar. "President, we've already chosen a few red missions, but we haven't made a final decision yet." "You can make the final decision," West said. "Okay, I'll go over now." Chen Zhao hung up. Recently, the association had been evaluating and choosing the Scarlet mission. Every mission wasn't easy. There were even some missions that no one knew how difficult they were. These missions were usually eliminated directly. Because not knowing what the difficulty was, it meant that there would be greater difficulty and unknown risks. If they had to choose missions with at least some clues. Of course, everyone had heard of these missions. Or maybe it was because it was too difficult, which was why it was famous. Therefore, they had to be very careful when choosing a red mission. Everyone hoped that they could leave safely and come back safely. Chapter 16-13. Chen Zhao arrived at the conference room in the headquarters. Everyone went straight to the main topic. "President, we've chosen a total of 7 missions. Sealing the Stone of Slaughter in Japan, killing the Mekong River monster, removing the Pharaoh's curse, finding the lost shaman heritage, and handing it to shamanism, killing the giant in Norway, finding and killing the North Sea monster, and killing the poisonous dragon in the African barbarian cave. So far, we've chosen these 7 missions, but we haven't decided which 3 of them," West said. "The Stone of Slaughter?" Chen Zhao asked. "The legendary Stone of Slaughter that seals the 9-tailed fox Tamamonome?"
Yes.
To be honest, the Stone of Slaughter was a rather famous legend in the East. Even as a Chinese, Chen Zhao was familiar with it. Or rather, he'd heard about it many times. "That 9-tailed fox escaped? How strong is it? Are you sure we can handle it?" To be honest, Chen Zhao had heard about it too many times. Therefore, Chen Zhao wasn't sure if they could really handle the legendary monster that could sink the entire island of Japan. Even with Chen Zhao, they couldn't do it, right? "President, actually, Tamamonome didn't escape, but a crack appeared in the seal. The Stone of Slaughter is currently in the White Fox Stream in the Aoki Plain Forest under Mount Fuji, but because of the crack in the seal, large amounts of miasma have leaked out. The surrounding dozens of square kilometers are covered in miasma. Recently, because of the red missions, even more spiritualists have gone in and been harmed by the miasma. I heard that the crack has expanded quite a bit. If this continues, Tamamo no Mae might really escape from the seal. Chun Zhao had heard of the famous Aoki Plain Forest under Mount Fuji. It was the most famous suicide mecca in the world. Are you sure we won't run into Tamamo no Mae when we go there? Also, can someone tell me how strong Tamamo no Mae is? Are you sure this mission is suitable for us? President, I don't think the seal on the Stone of Slaughter is that easy to break, Dongye Tianchi said. He was Japanese, and the one with the most say.
Oh, why?
In fact, the seal has been loosening since 100 years ago. Over the past 100 years, the cracks in the seal have been expanding. As long as the Sengen Shrine is still there, the seal will not be unlocked. So, the possibility of facing Tamamo no Mae is not high. Moreover, Tamamo no Mae is said to be able to sink the Japanese island. In fact, Tamamo no Mae's real ability is to cause the sacred mountain, Mount Fuji, to erupt. Dongye Tianchi said, Tamamo no Mae was sealed by the Onmyoji Amphii Saimai and 300 Onmyojis. Although Tamamo no Mae caused a great disaster in that battle, he didn't sink the island of Japan. If he really had that ability, he would have used it at that time. Chun Zhao sighed in his heart. What a pity. Then why did you choose this mission? I still think this mission is too dangerous. Because of Ruan Fax Ben, West said. Him? What happened to him? Chun Zhao turned to look at Ruan. President, I realize that dragon scales can repel poison, Ruan said. It's very effective. As long as you wear magic dragon scale armor or dragon scale armor, the miasma won't be able to get close to you. I also made a large number of antidotes. Also, West said, I don't think Amphii Saimai is stronger than the president. No, I think so. Master Saimai is the greatest on Myoji. He's the founder of Enyang Dao. Dongye Tianchi clearly respected his ancestor very much. Even though he also respected Chun Zhao. But he also respected the Onmyoji from 1,000 years ago. Chun Zhao's power was obvious to all. But Chun Zhao clearly didn't contribute much in the field of religion. Okay, your Saimai is the best, okay? Chun Zhao couldn't be bothered to compare with a little Japan from 1,000 years ago. Also, we have Alice. Alice knows a lot of sealing spells, even the Enyang Dao sealing spells, West said. So, I think this mission won't be too difficult for us. Let's talk about the other tentative missions. What's the Mekong River Monster? The Mekong River Monster has existed for more than 1,000 years. In the early days, the people in that area even treated it as a river god and performed many live sacrifices. Until the 1980s, it was officially recognized as a water monster. Its exact species is unknown. It's a cold-blooded animal. We only know that it has the power to control water. It's speculated to be a dragon. This mission can be pre-selected. My main battlefield is in the water, Chun Zhao said. I'm not afraid of any enemies in the water. Of course, unless it's absolutely necessary, I don't want to fight personally. It's best if you guys complete the 3 Scarlet missions. I'm just the final guarantee. That was what Chun Zhao said, but he knew that if he didn't fight, the chances of this mission being selected were very low. In the entire association, apart from him, no one was good at fighting in the water. But to Chun Zhao, this mission might actually be the easiest. Of course, to be frank, these missions weren't for Chun Zhao. They were for the members of the association. So, Chun Zhao's words were only for reference. At the same time, Chun Zhao would be a backup instead of directly participating in the mission. There's also the Egyptian Pharaoh's curse. This completely requires Ruan Fax Ben and more Raz. We can't do anything at all. We've already bought a sample of the Egyptian Pharaoh's curse, West said. It's just that no one has been able to break the Pharaoh's curse in the past few centuries, so the chances of us solving it aren't high. Mr. West, please don't compare me to those trash. I'm Ruan Fax Ben. Ruan Fax Ben said, dissatisfied. Fine, I hope you can succeed too. Of course, I still have my own opinions. Wes was obviously happy to see his own people solve the pharaoh's curse. However, he didn't have high hopes for it. There's also the shaman's legacy. Shamanism originated from Africa, but most people only know this much. We're also limited to this. This mission is closer to the African barbarian cave poisonous dragon. The African barbarian cave poisonous dragon. Is it a dragon? Yes, it's a real dragon. It's the only confirmed dragon in the world right now. But this mission is the same as the Mekong River monster. Unless the president takes action personally, otherwise. Chapter 16:14. Although magic dragon scale armor and dragon scale armor can resist poison, they're useless against poisonous dragons, Wes said. To be honest, for Chen Zhao, most red missions weren't difficult for him. For example, slaying a dragon. But Wes didn't plan on asking Chen Zhao to do it directly. If Chen Zhao did it himself, there wouldn't be any discussion. He could just pick a few nearby missions. There was no need for a meeting at all. Norwegian forest giant. It's a giant from Norse mythology. Is it a titan? Chen Zhao didn't know much about European and American mythology. The giants in Norse mythology and the titans in Greek mythology are two completely different things. They belong to different mythological systems. But both the Vanir and Olympus gods like to fight giants, Alice said. In Norse mythology, the god of deceit, Loki, led his sons and giants to kill the gods during the twilight of the gods. The Loki from the Women's Federation? That's a movie. West rolled his eyes. The real god of deceit, Loki, is Odin's brother. Is that Norwegian forest giant the one from Norse mythology? I don't think it's a pure-blooded giant, Wes said. Wes said, according to the witness, he was 100 meters tall and held a tree trunk in his hand. It's like the mountain giant in Dota, Moore said. Shut up. West glared at Moore. Just because Chen Zhao was joking didn't mean Moore could do the same. How strong is this Norwegian forest giant? He destroyed 2 towns before. The local government tried to keep the news under wraps. Understandable. Chen Zhao nodded. What about the giant North Sea monster? It's also a monster from Norse mythology. It's in the sea near Norway and Greenland. Its exact location is unknown. Not long ago, the giant North Sea monster appeared and attacked a large group of spiritualists. More than 100 people died. This is the video. Wes played a video that was less than 3 minutes long. In the video, it looked like a monster from mythology. Only part of its body was shown, but it was still enough to show how big it was. To Chen Zhao, it should be a monster like an octopus. A few tentacles reached out of the water, either wrapping around boats or slapping the sea. The tentacles were about 100 meters long, and if the part that was underwater was counted, it would probably be even longer. And judging from the strength of the tentacles, it was absolutely terrifying. That was because one of the tentacles had wrapped around a 100-meter-long ship and forcefully twisted it out of shape. On the surface of the sea, there were also people using firearms to attack the tentacles. One of them used an RPG to attack the tentacle, but the tentacle remained unharmed. Just the tentacles alone displayed astonishing defensive power. In the end, everyone looked at Chen Zhao. Very powerful, Chen Zhao said after a while. Guild leader, what else? You can't beat them, Chen Zhao said honestly. Then, out of these 7 missions, which do you think we should choose? According to your description, the killing stone should be the easiest one, provided that the 9-tailed fox, Tamamonome, doesn't come out of the seal, Chen Zhao said. Secondly, we need to find the lost shaman heritage and remove the pharaoh's curse. As for the rest, we need pure combat power. From what you've said, it's hard to win. Poisonous dragon, giant, water monster, and sea monster. Maybe we can try the giant, but I don't recommend trying the other 3. First, the Mekong River monster and the North Sea monster could be eliminated. The association lacked combat power in the water. Second, the poisonous dragon. That was a real comparison of power. If Gaia, Heliais, and Norma could increase their power by several times and work together, they might be able to fight it. To put it bluntly, the others were just a bunch of nobodies before the poisonous dragon. How about this? We'll seal the killing stone first, and then try to find the lost shaman heritage. Ruan Fazabin and Moraz will also do their best to break the curse. If we can't break it in actual combat, then we'll prepare to surround the giant, Wes said. However, the last 2 missions are more dependent on luck, Wes said. There's too much luck involved. So, if these 2 missions don't work out, the president might have to take action and choose one from the poisonous dragon, sea monster, or sea monster. All right, Chen Zhao said. We'll do that for now. Strictly speaking, Tamamonome, the 9-tailed fox sealed by the killing stone, should be the strongest. But the prerequisite was that the seal had to be undone. Just then, Chen Zhao's phone rang. Chen Zhao greeted West and walked to the door to pick it up. Risvar, what's up? Laura isn't feeling well these days. Do you have time? Help me take a look at Laura.
Sure.
Is it urgent? If it's not, I'll go over tonight. Okay. I'll have the kitchen prepare your dinner. Are Phalai, Jerlin, and Larissa coming over? Do I need to prepare them? No, they won't come. I won't be home. I have work to do now. Okay, we'll talk later. The meeting was also coming to an end. Chen Zhao and Wes both said a few words. They decided on the Scarlet mission for now. Then, it was the preparation work. After all, each mission was dangerous. No one dared to be careless. The preparation work this time was an investment without considering the cost. This mission wasn't just a trial. It was also a huge income for the association. Therefore, there was no need to consider the cost. The trip to Japan was tentatively scheduled to depart in mid-October. After confirming the date, the meeting ended. Chen Zhao drove to Beverly Hills. Chen Zhao's car had just entered Risvar's house. Vera, Ronnie, and Laffer rushed to Chen Zhao. Laffer missed his canine companions very much. Uncle Chen, did Jerlin come?
No.
Uncle Chen, why didn't you bring Jerlin? Did you mistreat Jerlin? Why didn't you let Jerlin play with us? Ronnie had already shown her unruly and unreasonable side at such a young age. Chen Zhao sweated profusely.
Huh?
Did your dad mistreat you too? Jerlin kept saying that she hasn't seen you in a long time. Chen, I heard you bad-mouthing people behind their backs from afar. That's not something my friend should do. Chen Zhao could hear Risvar's dissatisfied voice from afar. I was forced to retaliate. You should ask your daughters. It's best to discipline them. Chapter 16-15. Chen Zhao entered the mansion. Rala leaned on the sofa in the living room. When she saw Chen Zhao, she immediately stood up and hugged him, welcoming him. Rala, I heard from Risvar that you weren't feeling well, so I came to see you. Rala glanced at Risvar and slapped her forehead. Oh my god, I just caught a cold. Do you really have to invite Chen? Rala said in a blaming tone. Do you think Chen is as free as you? No, I think Risvar did the right thing. Plus, you don't look so good. It's not as simple as a cold. Hearing that, Risvar immediately tensed up. Chen, is it? Rala had a history of cancer, although Chen Zhao had cured it. However, Risvar was still worried that it would relapse. Hearing Chen Zhao's words, Risvar was scaring himself again. Chen Zhao rolled his eyes at Svar. Don't scare yourself or Laura. It's nothing. What I mean is Laura is probably infected with the flu and has a bit of a fever. Chen Zhao paused and sat beside Rala. Rala, let me check your body first. Then I'll prescribe some medicine for you. Seeing Chen Zhao's relaxed expression, Risvar also relaxed. Then, Chen Zhao finished checking Rala's condition and prescribed some medicine. Risvar looked at the prescription. It was just a normal anti-inflammatory medicine, so he also relaxed. Uncle Chen. Ronnie and Vera ran in again. Uncle, tell Dad to let us play with little Gulin. Chen Zhao looked at Risvar and Rala. You heard that, right? How about this? Bring them to your house for 3 days tonight and send them back on the weekend. There's a party in my manor on the weekend. You, Phalai, Ge, and Larissa can come too. You can only play at my house for a few days. Ge can, but Larissa can't leave Phalai yet, Chen Zhao said. Right now, Larissa's situation was rather special. Her diet was rather complicated. Apart from breast milk, she also had some food that could only be found at home. So, Chun Zhao wanted to stay at home. Go was wild and didn't need special treatment.
Yay.
That's great. We can play with the dolphin. Risvar and Rala were helpless. Ever since little Galin's birthday party, Ronnie and Vera kept thinking about the dolphin family. The two of them could provide for almost all the needs of their children. But this was the only aspect that they couldn't compare to the Chin family. Chun Zhao's family didn't have many things, but they had a lot of animals. Moreover, every animal was full of spirituality. Although Lafayette had become smarter in the past 2 years. But compared to Chun Zhao's animals, they lacked intelligence. As they were talking, Del came in with Faith. Uncle Chun. Seeing Chun Zhao, Faith suddenly said with tears in her eyes, Uncle Chun, is little Jerlin here? These little fellows were all talking about Best Actor and Best Actress levels. Tears came out of nowhere. Faith, Mom, and Dad asked us to stay at Uncle Chen's place for a few days. Laura proudly showed off to Faith. Faith threw herself at Del's chest and started crying. Wah, Dad, Ronnie and Vera are going to stay at Uncle Chen's place. They can eat with Princess and play with the dolphin family. They can ride on Black Ma and White Ma and Basin. They don't have any. Seeing Faith crying, the adults present all had awkward expressions on their faces. If you wanted to go, just say it. Why did you have to beat around the bush? Okay, you can go too. You can go too, right? Del had a headache. It's not like I'm stopping you from going. Faith's tears turned into a smile. Really? Yes, but don't cause trouble for your Uncle Chun and Auntie Failai. Yes, little Faith will be good. Little Faith said happily. After dinner, the 3 kids prepared to follow Chun Zhao home. However, these 3 little fellows really had a lot of things. Risvar even sent a servant to help deliver the things to Chun Zhao's house. When Chun Zhao brought the 3 kids home, Chun Zhao's eyes lit up. There was an uproar in the house, including little Larissa. Even though it was already night, they wouldn't go to sleep. They were going to play on the beach at night. Chun Zhao could only accompany them. Night was different from day. There was a certain degree of danger at night. The seawater would also wash some dangerous creatures onto the beach. Chun Zhao first checked with the little world before letting them come down to play. Chun Zhao and Failai jumped onto a soft bed on the beach. While watching the little fellows frolic, he enjoyed the tranquil and pleasant night scenery. Little Larissa had already fallen asleep. She was nestled between the two of them. This kind of night was unforgettable. The family pets were also playing on the beach. Only Princess was quiet and didn't move. She lay beside the mattress. Briar and Bramble didn't inherit their mother's personality at all. Or perhaps it was because of the environment they grew up in. They were very active like little Ga. Briar, Bramble, Simba, and Nana had grown a lot compared to last year. Little Ga could already ride them now. Moreover, they were much stronger and smarter than their peers of the same age. In American society, it wasn't rare to have any kind of pet. Felines, bears, or even cold-blooded animals weren't rare either. Of course, this was the privilege of the rich. Nevertheless, there were many cases of pets attacking people every year. But there weren't many pets like Chun Zhao who flew in the sky, crawled on the ground, and swam in the water. There were high beams at the back of the beach to provide enough light for the kids playing on the beach. Under the control of the housekeeper system, the light was always locked on to each child. According to the settings of the housekeeper system, the safety of the children in Mingyue Villa was the highest. Once a dangerous creature approached, it would alert the housekeeper. Of course, Chun Zhao was also monitoring them at all times. He made sure that no accidents would happen. The underlings brought over some cut fruits and juice. When the kids were tired, they would drink some juice and rest before continuing to play. The kids were too excited. They really treated this night as a party before the end of the world. Chun Zhao let them be. If they were really tired or if Chun Zhao thought it was too late, he would let them sleep. If they didn't sleep, he would give them the Banshee's charm. While he was free, Chun Zhao also arranged their meals for the next 2 days. It wasn't that they were malnourished. Chun Zhao just had some micronutrients as a professional habit. Chapter 16:16. The next day, after a good night's sleep, the little devils started playing again early in the morning. Chun Zhao and Fei Lai didn't care at all. They could do whatever they wanted. The morning air was still a bit cold, but Jerlin, Faith, Ronnie, and Vera were already playing on the beach. Kalon came again and saw the many little devils on the beach. He didn't understand where so many kids had come from. Chun Zhao came down from above. "You're so proactive?" Chun Zhao was surprised. Kalon shrugged. "I don't want to make things difficult for myself." He didn't know what Chun Zhao had done to his body. However, he could feel that every time he used magic, he would feel blocked. Clearly, Chun Zhao had done something to him. These kids are...
Why do you care about them?
Let's continue today. Practice boxing with me first, Chun Zhao said. With that, Chun Zhao tossed the boxing outfit to Kalon. Try to dodge my attacks, Chun Zhao said. Following Chun Zhao's instructions, Kalon tried to dodge. But no matter how he dodged, Chun Zhao could still hit him. He didn't have an advantage in speed or experience. After trying a few times, Kalon realized that his efforts were all in vain. Chun Zhao's punches were too fast. In fact, Chun Zhao had already slowed down his punches by 10 times. Otherwise, Kalon wouldn't be able to block Chun Zhao's 100 punches per second. Your kids went to play in the water. There are sharks there. Aren't you afraid that something will happen to them? Why do you think the sharks can appear here?
Why?
Because I raised them, of course. Chun Zhao rolled his eyes. Did you forget what happened that day? Why do you think you guys were attacked by sharks so many times and not hurt at all? Kalon recalled the experience that day. A few sharks kept attacking him and his friends. But in the end, they returned to the shore safely. Now that he thought about it, it was indeed very strange. Sharks can be raised in captivity. Kalon asked confused. I'm a spiritualist. You're a druid? Kalon asked in surprise. I only know animal language, Chun Zhao said calmly. At the same time, he punched and forced Kalon back. Don't get distracted. Bang, bang. Beast language? Can I learn it? Sure. Do you really want to learn? Of course I do, Kalon replied seriously. You need to start learning the most basic dog language.
How?
Practice barking first. Kalon's face darkened. How could he not know that Chun Zhao was making fun of him? After the sparring session, Kalon walked away feeling sore all over. But it wasn't easy for Chun Zhao. Little Jerlin, Little Fisher, Ronnie, Vera, and Little Larissa. After lunch, Fei Lai asked Chun Zhao to take the children out to play, including Little Larissa. Chun Zhao had no choice but to take the 5 kids out alone. To ensure that the 4 children wouldn't run off, Chun Zhao had to put leashes on each of them. It was also commonly known as a dog chain. In the past, Chun Zhao couldn't understand putting a leash on a child. Wasn't it too much to lead him like a dog?
But now he understood.
When taking more than one child out, a leash was almost a necessity. Chun Zhao had 4 leashes on him and Little Larissa in his arms. But the 4 leashes couldn't completely keep them in check. With their active personalities, the leashes would tie knots from time to time. Moreover, the 4 of them were completely dead set on the leashes. The leashes were always in a tight state. Dad, we're going there, little Jerlin shouted, pointing at a supermarket. Okay, a supermarket. Chun Zhao brought the little demons into the supermarket. Even little Larissa, who was in Chun Zhao's arms, showed her feminine nature. Dad, I want that. Uncle, I want that, and that too. Chun Zhao looked at the toy cars that the children were pointing at. The toy cars they wanted weren't ones that could be held in their hands. They could really be driven in them. They were actually miniaturized jeeps. They were 1.2 meters long. It seemed like a good choice to drive on the beach.
Sure.
Chun Zhao found a shop assistant and asked for 4 toy cars. Of course, even Chun Zhao couldn't take the toy cars and the packaging. So, he had the shop assistant send the 4 toy cars to his house. Then there were a lot of snacks. Chun Zhao wasn't afraid that they would get diarrhea from eating snacks. Anyway, Chun Zhao always had a way. Sun Min came to the supermarket today. She was actually here to inspect the supermarkets in America. She wanted to see the differences between the supermarkets in America and in China. She was a very career-driven woman. Even during the holidays, Sun Min would still care about something related to her work. After entering the supermarket, Sun Min felt that it was big, very big. There were about the same number of shop assistants and customers. Most of the time, the supermarkets in America were empty. Of course, there were shopping streets in America too. For example, Thanksgiving, Black Friday, and Cyber Monday. Every year on these 3 days, there would be stampedes in shopping malls and supermarkets. Most of the time, the supermarkets in America were empty. Just then, Sun Min saw a figure in front of her. She recognized Chun Zhao and was even more surprised by his situation. Is he a babysitter now? Sun Min couldn't be blamed for thinking so. Chun Zhao really looked like a babysitter right now. He was holding 4 children and holding another one in his arms. On the other hand, Chun Zhao's face was filled with despair. Sun Min had heard that there were babysitters in America, regardless of gender. Their main job was to take care of the children of rich families. No wonder Chun Zhao didn't want to eat with her last time. He was afraid of losing face. Sun Min hadn't planned to show off or humiliate him. However, she couldn't help but feel proud and satisfied. Now, she felt that her choice back then was correct. Sun Min thought for a moment and walked up. Chun Zhao. Sun Min went up to greet him. Chun Zhao was stunned. He didn't expect to see Sun Min here again. Sun Min, what a coincidence. We meet again. The world is so small. Or are we fated? Sun Min looked at Chun Zhao with a meaningful smile. Hehe. In this world, not every coincidence can be called fate. The 4 children were still pulling on the leashes like crazy. Jerlin even climbed onto the shelves. Looks like it's hard for you too, Sun Min said. Sun Min said, are all children so active? I don't dare to have children anymore. First, you need to find a man. Then you can choose whether to have children or not. Chapter 16-17. Huh? I won't disturb you anymore, Sun Min said. I still have something to do.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Seriously, when you're free, come out for dinner?
It's okay.
I'm busy. Sun Min glanced at the kids and nodded. I understand.
Bye. Bye.
Sun Min could feel it. Chun Zhao's attitude. He planned to cut all ties with her. But that was good. Chun Zhao really didn't have time to bond with Sun Min. The 4 kids bought many toys and snacks in the supermarket. They wanted to go to the amusement park. Okay, let's go then. But the amusement park was much more crowded than the supermarket. Chun Zhao had no choice but to ask Risfar to send a few more people over. Otherwise, he really couldn't take care of so many kids by himself. After playing for a whole day, they returned to Mingyue Villa in the evening. At night, Fei Lai planned to take the kids to the sea. Hearing Fei Lai's words, the kids were all excited. After dinner, the children jumped on the hydra. When the sun went down, the whole family went out to sea. After all, there were a lot of kids, so Chun Zhao and Fei Lai made a rule for them. They could only go into the water to play with their permission. Without their permission, they definitely couldn't go into the water. If the kids didn't listen, they had to go back immediately. Although Chun Zhao had brought them out to play, safety was the most important thing. Since Chun Zhao had brought them out to play, then he had to live up to Risfar and Dell's trust. 30 nautical miles after the hydra sailed, Amon started to follow it. Kids, come out, Fei Lai called. The kids ran to the deck in a hubbub. Just then, Amon leaped into the air. Amon's huge body was too shocking and impactful. His current body is even bigger than the hydra. Wow, wow, wow. So big. What's that? Amazing, amazing. Such a big fish. That's Amon, our Amon. Little Jerlin said proudly. Little Faith, Ronnie, and Vera all looked at little Jerlin with watery eyes filled with envy. Kids, do you want to play on Amon's back?
Can I?
Is it really possible? The children were chattering excitedly. Chun Zhao put the children onto Amon's back one by one. The 4 children jumped around on Amon's back. Fei Lai and little Larissa didn't go up. Little Larissa was too young to handle such a storm. After all, it was nighttime and the temperature was a little low. Under Chen Zhao's order, Amon started moving. He even made some movements on the surface of the sea. The four kids were shouting excitedly. After playing on Amon's back for half an hour, they finally returned to the shore. After playing on the sea for a few hours, the children were tired and fell asleep. Then it was time for Chen Zhao and Fei Lai. The Hydra has set a return route. Tomorrow morning, the Hydra will be back in port. In the morning, Lola and Risvar even made a video call. They wanted to talk to the children. Mr. Chen, Felwood said. The first draft of the Mirror Lake Villa is done. It's been sent to your email. Please take a look and see if there's anything you need to change. Okay, I'll take a look first. Chen Zhao opened his email and looked at the first draft. The process of building a private villa and customizing a yacht were similar. They both required the client to look at the design and then start construction after they were satisfied. Of course, the villa's design was much simpler than the yacht. Chen Zhao realized that this version of the villa's design was completely different from the previous Mirror Lake villas. The main body was cylindrical and much taller than the previous villas. Moreover, the main body of the villa this time was almost all built in the lake. One had to admit that the design was indeed eye-catching. However, the villa was completely built in the water, which increased the construction difficulty. The water's permeability and corrosiveness couldn't be ignored. Mr. Felwood, I don't object to building the villa in the water. I don't doubt your company's construction skills either, but how do you solve the extension problems? Mr. Chen, the biggest problem with building it completely in the water is humidity. However, installing a dehumidifier on each floor will solve this problem. At the same time, I plan to use titanium alloy as the main structure and custom-made large building glass to avoid the corrosion of the lake water, Felwood said. Each floor will be separated by fiberboard and then covered with soundproof materials. Felwood explained the various details of the design in detail. Will the dehumidifier cause noise? Mr. Chen, the current dehumidifier can achieve absolute zero noise. It's not the traditional square shape. Instead, it's curved and can perfectly fit into the wall. What about the resistance to wind and waves? Chen Zhao was most concerned about safety. He didn't want the villa to be flattened by a storm like the previous one. Of course, the previous villa wasn't flattened because of the design or construction quality. It was because of the third night. Nevertheless, Chen Zhao still hoped that the next time he encountered similar problems, the villa wouldn't be destroyed directly. Mr. Chen, look at the curved inner groove on the outer wall of the main body. It's a rather popular ventilation groove. Our company's designers specially designed it. By simulating the impact of wind and waves, it can reduce the destructive power of the wind and waves by several times. Also, we'll put a 20-ton piece of complete concrete in the lowest level of the villa's basement. It'll be fixed like a ship's anchor. I can guarantee that even if there's another hurricane like last time, the new villa won't be damaged at all. Chen Zhao thought for a moment. Make the room with the concrete in the basement into a sphere. It'll be the same size as the basement of Mingyue Villa. How do we put the sphere in? You don't have to be responsible for that. I have my own plans. Okay, I understand. When he'd built Mingyue Villa, the construction had been a bit rushed. But this time, he had more time to build the Mirror Lake Villa. Chen Zhao had thought about moving to Mirror Lake in the winter. However, he probably wouldn't be able to move in this winter. Since that was the case, he might as well let Felwood build slowly and focus on quality. Chapter 16-18. Chen, when are you free? Come to school. Sure, I'm free today. I'll go over in the afternoon. Chen Zhao could vaguely tell from Wright's tone that she had something to talk to him about. In the afternoon, Chen Zhao left the kids with Fei Lai and went to UCLA. Chen Zhao hadn't been to school in a long time. Ever since little Larissa was born, he'd spent most of his time on her. When he arrived at the school, he saw someone familiar in the distance. Colin, why are you here? Are you also a student here? Mr. Chen, why are you here? You're not here for me, are you? Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. I'm a professor at UCLA. Why do you think I'm here? What? Kalon was shocked. He didn't expect Chen Zhao to be a professor at UCLA. All right, let's not talk anymore. I still have something to do. It couldn't be said that Chen Zhao and Kalon had a deep friendship. However, ever since Kalon got used to being abused by Chen Zhao, he was no longer afraid. He found that he seemed to enjoy the process a little. Of course, it was mainly because Chen Zhao could teach him something, although the process might be painful. However, after every sparring session, Chen Zhao would heal him too. Chen Zhao found Wright's office. Seeing Chen Zhao, Wright pushed up her glasses and looked at him unhappily. Darling, you don't seem to want to see me. Tell me, how long has it been since you last came to school? I've been busy lately. Chen Zhao didn't even bother to find an excuse. He sat before Wright's desk and started eating an apple. Do you know how much pressure I've been under to keep your professorship? Most university professors in the United States were permanent. Of course, the premise was that he didn't resign. People like Chen Zhao might not even come to school once a month. They only had 2 or 3 classes every half year. Wright had indeed put in a lot of effort to keep Chen Zhao's title. All right, enough with the nonsense. Let's get straight to the point. This time, I called you here to ask for your help. Tell me, what is it? As long as I can do it, I will definitely do it. I want money, Wright said straightforwardly. How much? Chen Zhao hesitated. It was not that he could not afford it, nor was he unwilling to give it to Wright. But giving it to Wright was one thing, giving it to the school was another. Chen Zhao's feelings for the school couldn't compare to his personal relationship with Wright. If Wright was personally short of money, or needed it urgently, Chen Zhao didn't even ask how much it was. He just wrote a check. But Wright wasn't asking for money personally. The school probably needed money for her to ask for his help. The school doesn't have a lot of funds this year, especially for the sports club. Wright said, half of the students in the school are members of the sports club, and there are more than 2,000 students who are interested in developing in sports, but the funds allocated to the sports club is only $1 million. Chen Zhao had done some sports-related things before. For example, Tigers training and competition. It was all Chen Zhao's own money. He knew very well how much it cost to train a sports student. Of course, it was impossible for the school to train every student like a professional athlete. If every student who wanted to develop in the sports circle was trained like a professional athlete, even if UCLA had a mountain of gold, it wouldn't be enough. Even so, the school had a huge number of sports students. The cost of equipment, competitions, and training was still not a small amount. For example, a basketball match at another school would cost around $1,000. If it was a city match, it would cost at least $5,000. If it was a city match, it would cost at least $5,000. There were also other sports students. How big is the gap? Chen Zhao asked. The next funding won't come until March next year. There's still half a year until then, so if you want the sports students to have enough funds, you'll need at least $1.5 million. Wright's eyes were pleading. Chen Zhao pursed his lips. What can I get out of it? What do you want? Wright wasn't an unreasonable person. When it came to sponsorships, it would be successful. If it didn't, it wouldn't affect Chen Zhao's personal feelings. If charity or sponsorships couldn't generate profits, they wouldn't last long. This was very common in Europe and America. Money didn't grow on trees. Europe and America's attitude toward charity was exactly like the Chinese saying, teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. This was also why charity funds in Europe and America were all profit-making. So, if Chen Zhao made his request, Wright wouldn't reject it as long as it was reasonable. If Chen Zhao only wanted to donate, he could donate for 1 or 2 years. But he couldn't spend $1 or $2 million every year to something that wouldn't bring him any profit. I can sponsor the UCLA Sports Club $2 million every year. However, I request that all the competitions held by UCLA every year have the Dashenbeer logo. Also, the uniforms of the UCLA Sports Club must have the Dashenbeer logo on them whenever they participate in competitions. $2 million isn't enough. At least $5 million. Wright raised the price. Do you know how many competitions our students participate in every year and how many times they participate in them? If it's more than 10,000 times, according to the price of 2 million, it's like only $200 per competition. Chun Zhao shook his head. 5 million is too high. Also, I don't think the sports club needs that much money. 4 million. I can't go any lower. How about 3 million? Chun Zhao said. This wasn't a real business negotiation. Their conversation was too personal. While they fought for their own interests, they couldn't attack each other like they would at a real negotiation. If they really wanted to negotiate, Chun Zhao wouldn't be the one doing it. Instead, the legal team would be the one doing it. 3.5 million, Wright said. I want to sign a 3-year sponsorship contract and pay it all in one go. I want to build another stadium.
Fine.
Chun Zhao shrugged. I'll get the lawyer to sign the contract with you tomorrow. Oh, do you have any coupons? Wright asked gloomily. Dashin beer has been too hard to buy recently. It's sold out every time it's on the shelves. She might look like an old woman in her 90s, but she was a real alcoholic. No, Dashin beer doesn't have any promotions right now. Chun Zhao rolled his eyes. Also, do you think you're young? You're already so old, but you still drink every day. I'll check your body later. Chapter 16-19. If consumed in moderation, Dashin beer was good for the body. But it wasn't necessarily a good thing to drink too much every day. Of course, not everyone could drink too much. Dashin beer always had a special characteristic. It was that the alcohol content wouldn't be high when drinking it. But after a few more cans, the aftereffects would come. Most of the time, they would be drunk and unable to wake up. I'm also a medical student, Wright said. I don't need you to tell me that drinking is bad for the body. But under Chun Zhao's tough attitude, he wouldn't sponsor him. If Wright didn't examine him, he wouldn't sponsor him. Wright was infuriated by Chun Zhao's threats. Kalon just walked out of the classroom. He had just finished a public lecture. 2 people walked toward him. One was a voluptuous, sexy woman. The other one was a tall and sturdy man. Kalon didn't think much at first. However, the 2 of them continued to walk towards him. Mr. Kalon, can we talk? The sexy woman asked with a sweet smile. It was easy to like a woman like her. Kalon was stunned. He looked at the 2 in confusion. Do we know each other? Just then, the sexy woman took out her phone and played a video. Mr. Kalon, is that you? Kalon took the phone and looked at the video. The incident in the video had happened the night before yesterday. Kalon was walking on the street when a girl ran to pick something up on the road. Coincidentally, a truck rushed over. At the same time, Colin activated his speed and saved the girl from the shadow of death. The video was probably taken by the surveillance camera at the intersection. But Kalon didn't know who these people were. How did they get the camera? I'm Si Lilan. He's my partner, Tank, the sexy woman said. The sexy woman said, we work for the government. We hope you can join our team. Sorry, I'm not interested. Kellen refused without hesitation. He was more interested in his father's organization, the Supernatural Organization. Kid. Tank's hand was already on Colin's shoulder. Do you know what kind of punishment an unregistered spiritualist will get for using magic? Colin dodged. He avoided Tank's hand. He didn't believe her. Moore had mentioned that there were many spiritualists in Los Angeles. Not everyone is a member of the supernatural community. There was nothing that prevented spiritualists from using magic as they pleased. As long as he did not use magic to break the law, no one would question him. There were also many spiritualists who relied on their magic to make a living. These are all permitted. Kid, I'm afraid you won't be able to refuse our invitation. There was a malicious smile on Tank's face. I still refuse. Colin was very annoyed by the other party's aggressive tone. If there's nothing else, I'll be leaving.
Goodbye.
Colin was about to leave when his body suddenly froze. He found himself unable to move. Si Lilan pointed her finger at Kellen, a mocking expression on her face. Let's go, Si Lilan said softly. Colin found his feet moving unconsciously. What did you do to me? Puppet magic. You are now my marionette, Si Lilan said with a smile. Hurry up and undo the magic on me, or I'll scream. Kalon was furious. At the same time, he also felt the magic was magical. Celilon's fingertips moved lightly. Then I'll sew your mouth shut. Suddenly, Kalon felt as if there were threads running through his mouth. Ugh, Kalon was shocked, but he couldn't make a sound. Just like that, Celilon dragged Kalon out of the school. Then he was brought into an alley. Kalon saw that there were many people in the alley. The leader of the group should be a blonde woman who is not much older than him. Is he our new member? Blitz pushed up his glasses and looked at Kalon. Vestana walked up with a smile. You're Kalon, right? I'm Vestana. Actually, we're schoolmates. I just graduated from UCLA this year, Vestana said. Ugh, Celilon, undo the magic on him, Vestana said. Kalon felt the magic on him disappear. He turned to look at the alley's exit. A few people had already stopped him. Clearly, they were preventing Kalon from running away. Kalon, we're very satisfied with your talent. Join us, Vestana said. Do you think you can force me to join you like this? Kalon hated being forced like this. If they were communicating normally, he wouldn't be so resistant. But Tank's tyranny and Celilon's control over him went against his will. He was filled with endless rage. I won't submit to you, Kalon roared. Vestana's expression showed her displeasure. Kalon, if you have any requests, we can talk. Don't push me away like this, okay? My request is simple. Get out of my sight and don't appear in front of me again. Kalon was still too young. He didn't use his brain before speaking. Vestana's displeasure became even more obvious. Tank growled. Do you want to die, kid? Tank's body grew a bit larger. His loose clothes instantly tightened.
Kalon looked at Tank.
Holy shit, is this guy the Hulk? But his attitude was clear. Kalon didn't think they could do anything to him. They couldn't possibly kill him, could they? If that's the case, there's nothing I can do, Vestana sighed. At this time, Vestana took out a piece of parchment. She turned to Celilon. Celilon, it's your turn. Understood, Miss Vestana. Celilon smiled. Mr. Kalon, we could have talked nicely, but since you refuse, we'll have to resort to some unconventional methods. Kalon found himself losing control of his body again. His hand subconsciously moved upwards. Slowly, it moved towards the parchment. Kalon cursed inwardly. He didn't know what this was for, but he could still sense that the situation wasn't good. This parchment seemed to be some sort of magical contract. If he pressed it, he wouldn't be able to change his mind. Kalon wanted to resist, but his body was tightly controlled. Don't struggle. Your mana is too weak. You can't resist at all, Celilon said with a hint of pride. Vestana, what a coincidence to see you here. Please remember this book's domain name. Nine Heavens Godly Emperor Mobile Version. Chapter 1620. Chun Zhao stood at the entrance of the alley with a smile on his face. The moment she saw Chun Zhao, Vestana's expression changed. Damn, why is he here? Save me, save me, Kalon yelled. But the next moment his mouth was sewn shut. Chun Zhao had already seen the entire situation. He walked into the alley. Vestana, can you explain to me what's going on here? Mr. Chun, this is a dangerous spiritualist. He used his magic to commit some serious crimes, Vestana said as calmly as she could. Oh,
I see.
Chun Zhao clearly didn't believe her. Just then, the people in the alley all looked at Chun Zhao, their eyes filled with caution. Chun Zhao walked up to Kalon and looked at the sheepskin contract. He had signed a sheepskin contract before, so he knew what it was for. What's written on it? Is this his confession? Chun Zhao reached out and grabbed the sheepskin contract. Give it back to me, Celilon shouted, reaching out to snatch back the sheepskin contract.
Slap.
Chun Zhao slapped Celilon away with the back of his hand. Damn it!
Tank roared.
His clothes exploded, and his body doubled in size. Stop! Vestana yelled. They couldn't have a conflict with Chun Zhao. They definitely couldn't have a conflict with him. This wasn't in line with their plan. If they had a conflict now, their plan might be put on hold. After Chun Zhao slapped her, the spell Celilon had cast on Kalon was dispelled. Mr. Chun, I didn't commit a crime, nor did I use magic. If he used magic to commit a crime, it's none of your business, Chen Zhao said, smiling. We're still investigating. We can't confirm it yet, Westana said calmly. Oh, then I'll bring him back for investigation too. Is that okay? No problem. Go ahead. Westana tried her best to control herself. However, the others were all arrogant. They didn't care who was in the right or who was rude. They only knew that Chen Zhao had come here alone. Then he'd snatched their people away. This wasn't something they could tolerate. They did not have Vistana's sense of the bigger picture and patience. Especially Tank, he was impulsive and easily angered. And the angrier he was, the more powerful he was. Moreover, once he exceeded the critical point, he would lose most of his rationality. Tank roared. You want to leave? Leave him here. Chen Zhao pulled Kalon behind him and looked back at Tank. Bang! No one saw how Chen Zhao did it. All they saw was that Tank's body seemed to have lost control of itself. Like a cannonball, he shot out and crashed heavily at the end of the alley. The others also crowded around him. Stop! All of you stop! All of you stop! Vestana shouted angrily. Whoever dares to disobey will be punished by military law. Only then did the psionic ability team members restrain their urge to attack. Chen Zhao whistled. I can't believe that the girl who was scared half to death back then has become a completely different person in less than half a year. Mr. Chen, I think there's some misunderstanding between us. Please forgive me. Please take him away. Actually, I know what Mansari wants to do, but I don't care, Chen Zhao said casually. But this is Los Angeles, my territory. If there's a next time, you might suddenly die. That's right, Chen Zhao said casually. Although Asalisa had already left the anti-terrorism department, she still had informants in the department. They could not receive all the information in real time like when Asalisa was the secretary of the department. They could not receive all the information in real time like when Asalisa was still the secretary. But they could still obtain a lot of information. Then they could analyze the information. Under Mansari's plan, the anti-terrorism department had secretly formed a supernatural team. As for the purpose of forming this supernatural team, Chen Xiaobei did not know. It wasn't hard to guess. It was to get rid of a supernatural organization's control. In the end, the supernatural organization would replace them. Of course, this was an overt plot. Mansari also knew that they could not hide this news. So, they did not want to hide it from the supernatural organization for too long. They did not need to hide this information. Instead, they wanted to avoid conflict with the supernatural organization in the process. As long as there was no conflict, even if the supernatural organization knew that there was another team, they had no reason to attack. The psionic team was not strong enough to fight against the supernatural organization. Vestana even suspected that Chen Zhao had appeared here on purpose. Chen Zhao's goal was to clash with them. Then he could legitimately disband the psionic team. At the very least, he could destroy the psionic team's confidence. Not just the spiritualists were shocked by Chen Zhao's words. Even Vestana's veins bulged. But in the end, she still controlled her anger. Impulsiveness was the devil. Vestana, I'm looking for a secretary. Are you interested? Chen Zhao was not in a hurry to leave. Grinning, he looked at Vestana. Vestana took a deep breath. I'm very happy with my current job. I don't plan on changing for now. If that's the case, then if I kill them all, will you lose your job? Vestana's eyelids twitched. Chen Zhao was provoking her on purpose. Mr. Chen, please leave. We're not that close. Fine. Chen Zhao shrugged. Then he glanced at Si Lilan. Little girl, do you know what happened to the puppet master I encountered last time who used magic recklessly? Si Lilan covered her face. The anger in her eyes was about to burst out. Si Lilan, step back. Vestana yelled. Si Lilan stepped back unwillingly. Seeing that he didn't provoke her, Chen Zhao left with Kalon. Mr. Chen, who are those people? None of your business, Chen Zhao said calmly. You know them. They're my enemies. Do you know them? Kalon admired Chen Zhao a little. After all, Qinzhao had saved him from so many people alone. At least, he couldn't be so calm. Also, Qinzhao's provocative tone didn't sound like he was going to save someone. It seemed more like he was going to pick a fight. Mr. Qin, aren't you afraid that they'll suddenly attack?
There's so many of them.
Numbers don't mean anything.
But there are so many of them.
Kalon didn't think that Qinzhao could beat so many people alone.
Tell me the exact situation.
You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.